Yo, are we starting? Is this
Yeah, I
it?
think we're live. Yep.
Okay. All right, man. It's good to be here. I'll be here representing for the Weeksville Disrupt conversation amongst artists. You know, as they say, wherever there's art, there's a spiritual presence in the room. So, man, I'm happy to be able to have this kind of conversation with you guys. I'll start off with the introductions for myself. My name is Spree Wilson. I'll have you guys introduce yourself because I want you guys to also be able to talk about yourself and your art in your own way. So, Spree Wilson, hailing from Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Nashville, Tennessee, musician, filmmaker, kind of a jack of all trades. So, glad to be here.
Guess I'll go. I'm Sierra Sean, currently in Los Angeles by way of New York. Born and raised in San Francisco and the Bay. An artist, singer, songwriter, educator, facilitator. Also co-run an independent label called Over Everything.
Fire, fire.
And I'm Mobley. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I am a songwriter, producer, performer, filmmaker, and kind of like you said, Spree, a jack of all trades. I wear a lot of hats, but grateful to Weeksville for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. Very, very excited about it.
Hell yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here with you guys. So I guess I'll act as the moderator slash conversation starter. I have no problem with that. All of us coming from different backgrounds. I'm interested to know what you guys. Mobley coming from. You say you're from Texas, right?
I live here. Yeah.
You live here? Okay.
Yeah.
And Sierra, you're from primarily West Coast, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you guys? Because I've always lived in the South. I mean, I have a spot in New York, but I'm primarily a Southern gentleman. So I'm always conscious to know how people's environments affect the art that they make. So I'm interested to hear from both of you guys. Like, how has your environment dictated the art in which you create? Don't all go at once.
Sierra, please. Sierra, please feel free.
I think I've lived in a few places, so I think it's definitely moving around so much has definitely shaped me. I think in particular being from San Francisco, being from the Bay, it's a very particular place. It's lost some of that because of why everybody has lost some of that, the gentrification and all that. But it's such a unique place. It was such an eclectic place to grow up in. My mother was really about exposing me to all types of art and letting me explore all types of things. And so I got a really well-rounded upbringing and a really well-rounded upbringing in music as well. And in my 20s and growing up and being in theater and doing art and writing and doing activism work. And then moving to New York, which influenced me a lot as well. Being in that kind of different environment and bringing what I learned in California to New York and then LA. So my environment has definitely influenced kind of my music, I think also it's helped me know who I am through moving through all these spaces and kind of know that like if I work here and I work here, then I'm probably doing something right. If I'm working across state lines and I'm working on the East Coast and the West Coast and the South, what I'm doing is probably resonating with people. So it actually kind of was a confidence booster as well to like see that who I am and what I'm doing, works in all these different places and I can, really synthesize all these influences that I'm getting.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love how you're able to kind of synthesize the places that you're moving, through and kind of putting that into your art. And Mobley, what about you?
Yeah, kind of a somewhat similar story for me. I live in Texas now, but growing up, I moved all over the place. So I was born in North Carolina. My whole family is from Georgia.
Okay.
Grew up in Western Europe. Like we lived in Spain. Spanish was my little brother's first language. I had to interpret for the family.
Oh, that's dope. And so, wait? You say it's your little brother's for his first language?
Yeah.
Okay. And does anybody else in your family speak Spanish besides you and your brother?
Some, and I'm rusty at this point. Like I
Okay.
was a kid, so you know when your mind works differently at that point in time, you can just pick that stuff up. I can still understand it, but I haven't practiced speaking it enough to feel super confident. But I live in a Mexican immigrant neighborhood here.
Yeah, that's
in
interesting.
Austin, so but yeah, so that, and then moving all around the country as well. You know, I was always the new kid growing up, and you always you have to figure out the rules. You have to figure out like, all right, what's the like who's who around here. Even in school, like starting in the middle of the year, you have to catch up with everybody, learn what everybody else has been learning. So that ability to kind of adapt to new situations and just exposure to a lot of different cultures. Like my first memories aren't in the United States. My first memories are outside the United States, looking in at it. And I remember coming here and like it being a thing. So yeah, I think that's been a massive influence on me creatively. What about you?
Man, like I grew up primarily in Nashville. So which is like home of country music, you know, country and Christian music, not even gospel. It's very, yeah, growing up when I was a kid, like it was very, 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 very white. You feel me? It was like, I mean, listen, we just started showing up to Nashville maybe a few years ago. You feel me? In droves. I mean, we've always been there, but like this was like in the last 10 years, the first time I actually heard like people who look like me, like, man, you're from Nashville? I'm about to move to Nashville, like voluntarily. I was like, I tried my best to get out of that place. You feel me? Like I spent 18 years trying to leave and you're trying to get in there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely the influence of that. My mother she's not an artist per se, but she's very creative. And her diligence in making sure that I was exposed to as much art as possible when I was young really, really, really had a profound effect on me. We traveled a lot. It was just me and her. We took weekend road trips almost every weekend, if not every weekend, every other weekend. And it wasn't even like very far. It was like, what's the next town? You know, and we just go to these small towns and like, it's just predominantly like white people. And we just like go into like these like buildings that have like art and different like restaurants and just experience like a life outside of our own bubble. And because of that, like I was exposed to a vast amount of things and people that weren't in my immediate environment, which I think had a profound effect on me. Because from there, I went to art school, and I was getting put onto like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and the Beach Boys, and like back home, I was like, my mom was listening to like adult contemporary shit, so like Fleetwood Mac, Elton John, like any of that stuff, like from the like yacht rock is what I like to call it, from the, like 70s and shit. And so, having that and then traveling a lot kind of just really established a foundation of like the things that I could do creatively. I didn't even know if I wanted to be in music. It's just like, I knew I wanted to do something creative. And then my mom was like, hey, like, just figure it out. Like she would put me in like a film class, and then she would like expose me to like music classes and put me in bands and like just kind of put the things in front of me and allowed me to kind of reach and pick, the things that I wanted to do. So that's kind of like.
When did you decide? When did you decide you wanted to do?
Man, I think like, that's a good question. I think like in high school, probably like I knew like for sure I wanted to do it as a career. But before that, I'd only done music and film since I was a kid. Like since I was 7 years old, like my first performance was in front of 200 people when I was 7, and like, the first song I ever performed was written by my mom. Like I came home one day from school and was like, it was a paper for a talent show. I was like, Mom, I want to be in the talent show, and she was like, doing what? I don't know. She's like, I just want to be in it. And she like, okay, cool, like. And I think at the time, like MC Hammer was really big. So this is when you could actually go to like record stores and buy tapes and CDs and instrumentals and shit. And we go to the record store and buy a tape. And then it was her and my best friend's aunt, and they would sit at the dinner table and just write a song, like write lyrics to the song, and I performs. And I would just do that for like my whole childhood was basically being a performance kid, like perform here, like go to like get a camcorder, cool. Make a home movie at the house, then like invite a lot of people over. It was always that. And then I went to high school, met a amazing music teacher named Brenda Dismute, who encouraged me to write a lot of music and she would just give me chances to perform the stuff in school, and I got good reactions. I was like, oh, this seems like something I could do for life. You know what I'm saying? I still didn't know you could make money from it, in high school. Like, I still wasn't cognizant of the idea of like, oh, I could make a living doing this. I just knew like, oh, there's some people that probably are professionals, so I'll do that. So
Yeah,
that's what happened. What about you guys?
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
I always knew I wanted to do creative stuff. Like my mom is creative. Like she never like pursued it. She was in a singing group when she was younger and she could draw. But she was just always a creative. She used to DJ when she was younger. And so it's just funny when you talk to your parents and you see like you were kind of the continuation sometimes of like, the stuff that they either wanted to do or just the stuff that they were already doing just kind of gets through you through osmosis or genes or however that works. So I always knew I wanted to be, a singer and possibly an actor. I used to want to be a pediatrician. I used to want to do all of those at the same time. And then I grew up singing, sang. I grew up performing and singing and acting. I acted for a long time along with singing. I went to high school actually for theater, and still sang when I was there, and got into a lot of activism and organizing as well in high school. And so knew I wanted to do all of those things kind of together, but realized I kind of maybe wanted to take a different path. I was trying to figure out if I almost went to an art school for college, but I was like, maybe I'll, not and figure it out because I wanted to do all of these things. But I think I always knew I wanted to do music in some capacity for sure. Always wanted to be creative, but also always wanted to help people and work with youth as well. So that has changed, but basically is what I've done my whole life. But the container for that has changed. I didn't want to be a doctor anymore or, be on Broadway per se, even though somebody wants to put me on Broadway, I'm gonna still do that. But I'm not gonna say no to that. But the container has kind of changed, but the knowing from a very young age kind of what I wanted to do has stayed the same, and I've been able to kind of just build my life from there and piece it together. Yeah. What about you, Mowgli?
My path was very different from y'all's in that respect. I grew up like learning instruments. I started playing violin when I was like 4 or 5, and then picked up trumpet in middle school, and then guitar in high school. And music was always really important to me, but I didn't know anybody who was an artist, like literally nobody. There was no conception in my mind that was a real thing. It's like those people live on another planet. I don't know how to get there. I'm not even thinking about that. And so I wanted to be, early on as a kid, I wanted to be an animator. Then eventually that kind of faded away. And so by the time I was going to college, my plan was to become a lawyer and go into politics. And then my freshman year of school, I started writing songs, just kind of out of nowhere. And it was like, this is the best feeling I've ever had in my life. I don't think I can do anything other than this. I got to find a way to get paid to do this because this is what I'm going to be doing all the time, no matter what. And so, just slowly turn that from making songs in my house for free to making songs in my house. I'm sitting in my studio right now for a living. But yeah, definitely looking back, I can see now that this is what I've always wanted to do. But it was one of those things where if you can't see a path for a thing, and people talk about this a lot, especially for Black children, and the importance of seeing these things represented. But like, I just didn't. It didn't even exist in my imagination, even though like somewhere my spirit was like, this is what you need to be doing. And it took getting to a place where I could see it, and it felt undeniable before I could be like, whoa, this is me. Like this is where I start this thing.
That's really dope, man. Like I always feel like man, like I think we're all born with like kind of a spirit that kind of leads us to whatever we're gonna do. And sometimes those things are multiple things, right? It could be like film, music, it could be visual art, it could be politics or whatever. So it's really cool that that you had like that spirit still guide you to like the point, even without having seen anybody in your environment there to kind of show you like, oh yeah, it can be done. It's like, oh, I still got here regardless. Even, and it's kind of fascinating to me that your life really was a more of a preparation stage, right? Because like, even though you went to school for something different, you had already been building that muscle, like violin and guitar and all that stuff to even get to that point, you know. So to even be at a place where you can say, you know what, I kind of want to write songs, you know, like, and then having the skill set intact to be able to, you know, follow that dream. So I think that's super cool and really fascinating to me.
That I actually have a question for y'all, like an anecdote of from myself, but then I'm this is something I'm always curious about with other creative people and songwriters in particular. For me, when I started writing songs, or the thing that was kind of the impetus for me to start writing songs is, since I was a kid, like all music was always playing in my head, and then I remember one day realizing that some of the songs I was hearing, it's like, oh, I've never heard this song before. This is my brain is making this up, and I should probably try to write it down or something. And I remember trying to have a conversation with somebody else about this, like, does this not happen to you? And then realizing, oh, this isn't everybody. Like, this is just a thing that only happens to some people. Did y'all have a similar experience like that, where you kind of realized like you were tapped into something that was like kind of a unique experience?
Where music was in my head?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
or whatever it was.
I think I've always made up songs. I've come from a singing house. My mom can sing, and so there was always music and always singing. And I just always made up songs. I used to play Donkey Kong and make up songs to the Donkey Kong music. Because there's a part in Donkey Kong, if you play Donkey Kong, the music was really good. So I would sing as I was playing the video games. I used to sing. I used to ride my bike around my aunt's house, and it was just kind of like this path. And I would sing as I was riding my bike. So I was always making up songs, like always before I wrote stuff down. I was always making up songs, singing in my head, singing everything. Me and my mother sing things. If you're with me for a long time, if you're my friend or you've been with me, like I'll probably end up singing something random. It's just kind of like, so it's always been there. I didn't start writing stuff down probably till maybe I wrote a little bit when I was younger, but like I would say like real songs, I probably didn't start till like early high school. And I started writing poems and turning them into songs because I've always loved poetry, but it was never quite my thing. And I think when I started writing in school, like they put all these rules on you when you write in school, like you write in this journal, and I'm a very succinct writer. Like I'm not a long-winded writer. And so like putting boundaries on the way I wrote was like really annoying to me. And so I would end up taking poems and just turning them into songs and realizing like, oh, I am a writer, because I love reading. Like there's authors that influence me as much as, you know, musicians. I love reading, I love writing, but you know, it was like, I'm not going to write a book. Like that's not quite what it is. And I'm not going to write poetry. That's not quite what it is. So like songwriting really opened up to like what kind of writer I was as well. But yeah, I've just always been making up songs since I can remember, like to everything.
That's dope. Yeah, I was the only child, man. I was a weird kid. I grew up listening to like, to be honest, my first influences for songs were like cartoons, man. Like I used to be on the playground singing Rescue Rangers theme song ad nauseum. Like I was singing Darkwing Duck theme song at nauseum.
Darkwing Duck is a great theme song.
Those songs still hit.
Yo, I still know them. I know them verbatim. They're so ingrained in my brain. Like those are the first things that I used to like sing. Like those were that was my jam. Like anything that was like all those like show tune theme song Animaniacs. Like I was in love with that stuff. I mean, like it wasn't even just cartoons. It was like Saved by the Bell. Like I was singing that. Like I was very influenced by television and radio as a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like anything that was on radio, TV, the late 80s, 90s was like a super heavy influence. I was left to my own devices. So like I was watching Fraggle Rock and all type of stuff, you know? And so like, yeah, like that's the stuff that was influencing me first. And then even when I was going on road trips with my mom, I was hearing like a Fleetwood Mac song, Dreams, and I would just sing on top of it, making up my own words. Like I was just like, I don't know the words of this. So I just like making up like counter melodies to the songs. I didn't even know that was songwriting. I was just like, oh, like what if I weave this melody in my head that I can come up with, and that's just began a creative process. It wasn't like, oh, I have this song I just can't get out. It's more so like, oh, like just give me a blank canvas and just let me see what I can do, and that just kind of just helps me become a creator, so to speak. Steph is hitting me about the 3 E's. So let's
Emancipation.
Emancipation Proclamation.
That was a lovely question.
So yeah, I mean, like these ideals are actually really cool. The freedom of working independently. That's actually something that I definitely want to talk to you guys about, for sure, on a personal level, just because I heard about you guys' music in different capacities, and none of it was like through like a major label system or anything. It's like I heard about Mobley stuff like maybe like a couple years ago through Steph. Like she just hit me up, she's like, "Yo, you heard about this guy named Mobley? Oh my God, he kind of reminds me of you. Like you guys are like on the same wavelength." And I was like, "Oh, dope!" Like, and she would just like send me your stuff, and then I was like, "Oh, this is really dope. This is really dope." And Sierra, I just have a lot of friends who are just a fan of your music. So like I just like millions of people would just like come to me and ask, "Have I heard about you?" And then I think I saw like your stuff on Instagram. I was like, "Yo, she has a really, really dope, unique style," and just like I just was really really interested in your story and the stuff that you were making. So I approached you guys as art through an independent channel. It wasn't like you didn't guys have like that big marketing budget. It was through like word of mouth and friends of mine who were really huge fans of you guys. So like I'm really interested in how you guys have been able to navigate like being independent, kind of being on your own path, being trailblazers, and how have you guys maybe not monetarily sustain yourself, but like artistically sustain yourself in an environment where like we all know there's a lot of people making music nowadays. Like anybody who has a computer and a microphone could basically call it a singer, songwriter, or rapper or whatever. So how have you guys been able to like be, navigate through these new waters? And two, like, I guess the second question would be like, has independence always been a choice? Like, has it been something that from the jump that you just didn't want to be signed to a major, or it was being signed to a major a dream at first, and then you just kind of realized like the independent route was better suited for what you want to do?
Sierra?
You go. Let me think.
Okay. Being independent definitely wasn't a choice at first. Starting out, there just wasn't any interest. Like, you got to build the thing. And I think even though I was independent at the start, kind of like you said, there's not a lot of people in the world, period, who know how the music industry works. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like you've had conversations that prepare you to understand how this thing kind of breaks down once you get on the inside of it and start to see the nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. And so at first, of course, I had these kind of romantic notions about, oh, you pay your dues, you play these shows, like somebody sees you, discovers you, whatever, blah, blah, you get signed and all your dreams come true, like just childish stuff. And then eventually that turned more into like, oh, this is just a grind and I'm just going to have to grind this out. And that's going to be the work. But I think for me, the actual emancipation kind of comes from making your art independent of even that system, like not even like the major label system, but just like I make art and then my job is to find a way to turn that into enough money to survive. Mm-hmm. But the emancipation for me was like kind of being able to take a step back from these capitalist notions about like value and worth and all these ways that I didn't even realize that I had kind of tied myself, my soul, to just these arbitrary things, like, getting stressed out about like a number on a page, you know what I mean? there was a moment where it was like, well, art is an expressive medium. Art is about conveying ideas. What are you trying to say? What are you here for? And as soon as that became the focus, like actually saying something, like actually using these artistic tools that I have developed over the course of years to actually say something and put ideas into the world and help people, then all the rest of that was just like, I'll figure it out. That's the work, but the actual calling is the art, and then you figure out how to make that interface with this commercial system and all that later. And that has been the most emancipating thing for me, for sure.
That's really dope. And so you've always been independent, like your whole career?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What about you, Sierra?
Yeah, just to agree with the last sentiment, like, yeah, like definitely emancipating myself from those values, because those are a certain set of values and a certain set of metrics, and that it's weird to say, like, it doesn't have anything to do with you when you're, trying to do this for a living, but it doesn't, like, it's not based on talent a lot. It's not based on hard work a lot, it's not based, it's a really weird business, and it's gotten weirder. And for me, starting out, especially coming into my queerness as I was coming into being older and being a musician, even today it's better, but it's still weird, to be open and to be queer and to be, a woman in this business, period, without the queerness and the openness, and to present the way I present. So I've had to go through a lot of other issues navigating, the music industry, along with the other silly issues that you have to, kind of go through navigating the music industry. But also I think because of that, I got to a point where I was just like really discovering who I was, independent, like Moby said, independent of whatever I'm supposed to be. And being able to, because I wasn't, signed to somewhere early, because I'm not signed to, a major label, being able to really discover myself and discover my music and not have anybody tell me how I should look or tell me how I should sound or what I should write. And I think that's made me a better musician and a better songwriter, and a better person, a more fully formed person, which sometimes also was a detriment to getting signed to a major label. Funny enough, I always thought, when I've always been kind of down to be independent, or down to, if it was the right kind of situation, for, more of a major company. But, for me, especially being, as anti-capitalist as we can be, living within how it is now, and being from the Bay, having a very particular set of values and particular set of like what success looks like and what community means and what all these things mean. And getting to a point, the older I get, it's like, am I going to be able to keep, my same integrity and maintain my values and not get chewed up and spit out, if I sign to somebody, a major label, if I sign to a major publishing deal, especially without leverage. I think anybody who does still want to sign to a publishing deal or a major label deal, I don't have any judgment on that. You got to do what you got to do, because the name of the game is amplification right now. Like Spree said, everybody's putting out music. Literally millions of people are putting out songs a day. So I get, if that's your path, like, I really truly have no judgment for that. I just want you to be okay. I just want you to be protected, because people assign you, but what kind of deal is that? How much of your worth, your art, do they own? What if it doesn't work? How is that? How are you gonna live? The industry literally chews people up and spits them out. And so for me, being independent, as much, heartache, I'm sure, as we've all gone through, trying to do everything by ourselves or figure it out, or I think it's a whole bunch of heartache that I've missed, because I haven't been exposed to a lot of the things that I've seen the major label system do, and got close enough to, and so there's been like a good freedom for it to just be like, keep evolving, but be that kind of this fully formed person, know what I want to say, as Mobley said, really be clear about like who I am and what I want to say and what I'm putting out. And then we can figure out the how later, but me, I have to divorce myself from the how a lot, because the how will make you crazy. And I'm a thinker and I'm a Virgo, and, we're artists, and it's like, I want to know all the details. It's like, I don't need to know all the details. You know, I can let it go. I can let the universe, whoever you believe in, I can let the ancestors, the universe handle the how, you know, as long as I do my part, you know. And so that has been super freeing for me, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, being like, oh, it's not me. You know, I think as a musician, you think it's you a lot, you know. And so it's like when you get to the point where you know if you need to become a better songwriter, a better performer, a better singer, like that stuff, you know, always work on that. Oh, that's always evolving. But like when you get to a point where you're like, oh, like it's not me, you know, like I could be the best person in the world. It's just that's not what they want. Or, you know, like so you're shaking your head and like if you are, sometimes it's weird, but if you are too fully formed, sometimes the music industry doesn't want you because they want to be able to say they created you and they want to be able to do what they want with you, you know.
Yeah.
And so being independent, figuring out for real what I want to do now, being able to help other artists, you know, I co-run an independent label and we don't sign people. We just kind of an A&R and, you know, songwrite and help people get to their next step, whether that's a distribution company, whether that's a major. And so it really has put me in a better position and helped me live within my ideals, I think, to remain independent and figure out, you know, what the next step is going to be.
That's super dope. I love both of those ideals. I
Oh,
come
I just
from.
want to say too, Spree, I heard about you a long time ago, probably through like music blogs when they were still a thing. And
Oh
I
yeah.
even wrote an article about you too. I worked for this online publication. I even wrote an article about you for like 3-4 years ago.
Oh wow,
Wow.
that's what's up. That's what I'm talking
Wow.
about. That's why I mean, like the internet. Like yo, when I was a kid, like it's kind of like what Mobley said. Like it's like you didn't have this kind of ecosystem where you could like find people who were like you. You feel me? You know what I mean? Like yeah, they were like for me, like yeah, they were musicians, but they weren't like me. Like they weren't like this weird like black kid like who just was like trying to explore so many different worlds. And I think like the internet has been like the great equalizer in that sense. It's just like yo, like I get a chance to know like there's a Sierra Sean out there and a Mobley and a Duckworth or anybody out there like who I love, whose music I really admire. I'm like oh yeah, like this person I don't know how they grew up, but like they seem like they are the same kind of the same tribe as me, you know. So I really love that about what the internet brings to the world. I come from a different world. Like I started 18, like kind of in a music industry. Like I started with a major music producer, not signed to him, but like that was my introduction. I started as an intern and I became a producer. Like I was producing and songwriting for like different artists, and then I moved to New York and got signed to a major to Jive RCA, and stayed on the label for like about a year, and then I left, and then ended up getting a pub deal with a major pub like Universal, and then writing bigger songs for artists, and then getting another deal, and then realized, and I think that was the time where I was like, I don't know if I like the way that the system is ran, but I was able to kind of develop a system for myself in which I can have the access of a major without me being signed to a major label, right? So it's like, oh, I can just like that's what songwriting gave me. Like being a songwriter, like I was never a songwriter for others until I got to New York. I was like, oh, I can use this skill to help other people. And then I realized like, oh, I could just have access to all the things a major has by helping somebody write, collaborating that way, producing for somebody, and not having to like necessarily sell my own or sign my own art to that, and just taking the things that I get from that, whether it be monetary success, whether it be access, resources of this particular situation, and then apply that to my own art and how I see it, you know. And I think like for myself, like that has emancipated me a lot. It's like I read this article by George Clooney years ago, and it kind of really changed my life and looked at how I see like the way that I navigate my own art, where he was like, yeah, like in order for me to do kind of the movies that I want, I might do a Ocean's 11. You know what I'm saying? Like I might do that just so I can have the capital and the resources to kind of do an independent film that I only want to do, that maybe only 10 people will want to see. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's really, really, really helped my particular journey and navigating and just being able to like not be stressed out. Like, you know, like I move my own pace for my music. Like I don't have to like rush or be adherent to like any major label president or A&R saying like you got to get the album out tomorrow, or like you got to make sure your Instagram is popping, or you got to like put out a song a month. Like, I ain't got to listen to none of that. You know what I'm saying? All I got to do is just do what I want to do, while also making sure that, you know, I can help others and collaborate with others in a way that is beneficial in all fronts, you know? So, yeah, let's talk about, this is also a good kind of segue, the challenges of being independent, and the way that your community, like, and collaboration has played a part. Do you guys collaborate a lot? Are you guys huge collaborators? For your, mostly for your own music, like, are you guys one of those people, like, you know what, like, for me, I got about 3 people I only work with. Like, are you guys one of those people, or are you just like, you know, I'm kind of open to, like, whoever I vibe with?
I'm open, pretty much. I think I used to collab a lot. I think a lot more when I was like in the Bay in New York.
Mm-hmm.
LA has stopped it a bit, but I collab a lot with like different producers and musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always open to collaborate with different artists. I think when it comes to my music, I have to do it all, I think, myself first, and
Mm-hmm.
then kind of, you know, zoom
Hell
out.
yeah, I feel that. I'm the exact same way. Like, I'm like, yo, I got to start the process first. I can't, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I got to make sure that the vision is out. So I feel that
Exactly.
100%.
Because I'm very, like, I think it's because I love movies so much and because I love books so much, I'm very narrative with the way that I write and the way that I sequence my projects. And so it's like, it's hard sometimes to be like, who else could go on here? Because it has to fit the, you know, has to fit the movie, has to fit the story, you know. But I'm definitely open. Like, if, you know, if we feeling it, like, I'm definitely open to, because I think collaboration is so powerful, and there's just so much there, you know.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I commend people who can play every instrument and write everything and produce everything and da-da-da-da, but I think sometimes, like, you need to expand, you know, you need to get those kind of different perspectives sometimes, and just, you know, sometimes collaboration really is just, it could be like, oh, I just need, somebody comes in and here's a little thing on it and you have them do it, you know what I mean? But I think having kind of a community of people, even just around, you know, that you can kind of be like, oh, come over and do this real quick. I'm definitely open to that. But, like, yeah, I'm glad you feel me on that, because sometimes I'm like, I gotta do it first, and then we can figure out what's going on. Like,
100%. Yo, I feel you on that, because I'm a Pisces, but I have Virgo in my chart, so I feel you on, like,
my
that,
mom's
like,
Pisces. I'm culturally a Pisces.
yeah, so I already know that Virgo Pisces, like, oh man, like, I gotta make sure everything's in place.
Yeah.
Like, I be here making creative decks for my music. Like, I'm like, for nothing, like, the deck isn't even going to anybody except for me to see. Like, like, I need a roadmap for myself. You feel me? So, like, I understand that, man. What about you, Mobley? Are you a huge collaborator?
So I kind of do it through the back door. Like, for my records, I am one of those people who, like, I play all the instruments, I produce it, I, like, and at this point, it's kind of like I enjoy that challenge, and like, you know, if I'm going to be spending this huge chunk of my life doing this, like, it's important that I actually enjoy the process too. So, like, part of it is just like, this is who I am now. But in terms of what Sierra was saying, of, like, kind of opening yourself up, I kind of use, so there are 2 things that I kind of use to keep myself fresh. So I produce and write for other people. So that kind of collaborative experience where it's like, I don't have to care about how it comes out. Like, I don't have to be precious about every single word. I can just be throwing out ideas. And also, just like, you see the ways that other people work, and it's like, oh, I've never thought about the way that you approach that verse. Like, I've never seen anybody do that. I'm gonna make a note of that, and then next time I need to go write a song, it's like, well, let me try this thing that she did. But also, like, I do composing work, so, like, either for briefs, or, like, I recently wrote a theme song for a podcast for the Smithsonian, and they had, like, this whole brief that they brought in, and that work of, because it's never musicians who write the briefs. Like,
never. Shout out to the Fortune 5 companies that pay us to do this, but, like, yo, y'all gotta chill out making us do corny stuff, and then at the end saying, you know what, we like the first idea that you gave us, which is the best idea. Y'all gotta chill out with that, man. They always do that, man. I feel you.
But that process of, like, trying to figure out what is in the brain of another person and then turn that into music, especially just a regular lay person who doesn't know about music, I think that can help you get to places that are hard to get to when you're just, especially working alone, you just have all your shorthand. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
I know where everything is. Bam, bam, bam. Here's a song. And it's like, but did I stretch myself? Did I grow? And so, yeah, like putting yourself in those other positions, those collaborative positions, or those positions where you're trying to translate, for me, really, really helped keep me fresh and bring new ideas into my own lab, where then I can like cook my own stuff, you know.
But man, I have a question for you, Art. So just follow me now. Like when you're working by yourself, because I've done this before. Like, what stops you from overthinking the process by yourself? Because I think the hardest thing for me, as a person who is also like played all the instruments and can produce the full Monty, myself is my biggest enemy. It's just like, is this guitar tone really that good? You know what I'm saying? Or like, is the kick is like, man, like would somebody like, I don't know, would Kevin Parker use his kick? Like I'm like overthinking the whole process to the point where it's like I'll make the song and then tomorrow I wake up, it's like, yo, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I'm ready to throw the computer out of the house. Like, how do you stop? How do you get to the point where you can get to that end result where you feel satisfied with the product, and not, you know, stagger yourself in the journey of getting there?
Yeah, I'm the same way. And I've lost a lot of songs to that. Like, whereas like I thought this was gonna be dope, and then now we're here 2 weeks later, and I can't even listen to this. But for me, I think like, especially growing up a little bit, like having other things come into my life that aren't, because like, you know, when I was 19, 20, I didn't care about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would skip meals. I wouldn't go hang out with people. I was just right. But now that there are other priorities, I think taking breaks is just super important, honestly. And like being an interesting person, having an interesting life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for me, if it's not, you know that flow state that you get into where like, it's just like, oh, there's no friction. It's just, it's coming. It's just coming. I like, the way I feel is like, I come to this desk, I sit down, I start working. If I don't hit that flow state in a couple hours, it's like, okay, well, let's try something else. Let's go sit at the piano. Let's pick up a guitar, pick up a bass, change something. And then if it doesn't come, it's like, well, I showed up, I did the work, I waited for the lightning to strike, and it didn't strike today. And that's fine. And so like, I'll go hang out with my family, and then I'll come back tomorrow and hopefully it hits. But yeah, like for me, it's anytime that I feel that flow state and it feels natural and easy, and I'm happy with the things that are coming. And not even necessarily smile happy, because sometimes the stuff I'm writing about like it's not making me happy, but that kind of, you feel like a vessel, you feel it flowing through you.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the stuff that I end up liking. And then the stuff where like I'm trying to force it, or I'm trying to calculate and like, oh, well, maybe if I made this sound, like that would work if I, you know, where you try to do the chess match thing. Yeah. That it always ends up not working. And so that's kind of the thing that I always try to remind myself, like get to that natural flow state and then just trust it, you know.
That's it. That's what it's about. Get to that flow state, man. They say it takes about, I think it was a statistics that said it takes about an hour and a half of like work to like actually get into the flow state. So like if you're just uninterrupted work for like around an hour and a half, that's what the numbers say. I haven't tested it on myself, but
I think that's true.
Something like that.
I think that's true for me for sure.
Yeah. It got to be uninterrupted. You can't be in there like, you know, checking the IG. You know what I'm saying? looking at your email, having that. You got to turn your notifications off, baby, for this one. You know. So yeah, I see we have like 12 minutes. So I want to get to the last E, which is entrepreneurship, and this is so important for a lot of people who's probably watching this and taking this all in. I want to talk about get into the business behind, you know, how we're, you know, about our music careers, how we're able to sustain ourselves, and just kind of, you know, let's give each other some pointers, baby. Like it's getting harder out here. It's a pandemic. It's a panini out here. You know what I'm saying? We gotta be in this together, guys.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious about how y'all do it, because like all the independent artists that I know who have made it a career, every single one looks different. So what is it like for y'all?
Collaboration, man. Collabs have saved my life, bro. 100%. Like, and just like being intentional with my collaborations. Uh, like a lot of my big songs are not even the type of music that I make for myself. A lot of my bigger songs are like dance music, EDM. Like I did like a song for this guy Afrojack, and it was like a big single for him, and like David Guetta and all that stuff. And like this is just stuff that I like to do. Like just like I love all types of music. And she's like, oh, let me explore this. Like let me write a song for these people. And all those songs that were like that kind of music has just saved my life. You know, it's just like, oh, like I get paid to do this. Like you want me to come out overseas and perform, and like I get a chance to save this money and then take the money and invest it in my career and build a nest egg for myself. That's like what I preach to everybody. Collab as much as you can with, and be intentional with collaborations. You know, like sometimes you're just collaborating with the fact like, oh, I like their music, and they also have resources that may can help me in the future. You know, like that's an intentional collaboration, and it's helped my own business as far as like the monetary value that it adds to it, you know, and it helps sustain and be able to do what I want to do.
Yeah. So what about you, Sierra?
For me, I mean, my career is all over the place. I think I'm still like not solely making money from music. So I make money from music, and I still make money from what do I do now? Basically being a facilitator and an educator, and using, those skills in different capacities. And sometimes, those day jobs have sustained me. I've been able to invest in myself. I've been my own kind of benefactor, but also community. Like my now, wife is skilled and hella shit, and, can take my pictures, and we do videos together, and we do all that together. And I've been, lucky enough that people like to work with me. And, there's a lot of music that I've done and things that I've done that I haven't had to pay for, or that I haven't had to pay exorbitant amounts for, because, we bartered or, exchanged, or people just did it for the love, So I always shout out my community, all the producers I've worked with, the people I've worked with who have helped me. And then just really like, it seems easy to say, but like, I just really worked on making good music. And like my music for sure, like has been what's got me far. I think, some people may think I'm cute, and that of course always helps, but like my music has like been the thing, like that's how people find out how I am, who I am and how I am, through like liking my songs, and getting connections through that, getting random. At one point I had like a Pandora station randomly because my friend worked there and they liked the music. And I was doing a lot, especially when I was in New York, I was doing a lot of shows, and people were like recognizing me through doing shows. And so like really like the love that I've gotten has been through the music, hasn't really been cosigns or anything like that. It's just been me really wanting to put out the best music I can put out every time. And wanting to put out, unique music as well. Like when you hear my song, you're gonna be like, either who is that, or you're gonna know it's me, And so I think that has really helped sustain me. And I think 2019 really like was probably one of the biggest years for my music, monetarily and just reach wise. And so 2020 happening kind of went for the potential of where stuff could have went. But it was also fine. Things happen for a reason.
Is that when you dropped what's that song you had? Is that when you dropped like Waiting For It, like 2020, 2019 or something like that?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah, Wait For It.
That's on hard.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
secure replacement 2019. So like 2019 was cool, and 2020 came, and I'm like, I guess I was supposed to calm down, universe.
You was too turned up.
We all had to take some time and evaluate society, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So I've, but honestly, like what, starting last year and this year, I started writing even better songs than I've ever written. Really getting clear on like who I was as a musician and what I want to give, and being able to have that time to kind of look and see what's going on, musically, and what's happening and what people want, and like hearing people want different things from music and want, better music and want bridges again and longer songs and songwriting. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like, I think I'm about to be in style again, so, really like feeling like maybe, I mean, the name of the game right now, I'm working on new music right now. And I think for me, the name of the game is just amplification, so, it's just finding the right partner to make sure I'm in front of, the people I need to be in front of. So, we can make a living consistently, and,
Yeah. Just
have
not.
this be kind of the conduits, everything else, and not be half and half.
Yeah, we're just not in the music business. We're in the attention business. It seems like
Exactly.
so.
Yep.
Gotta always be cognizant of where you're playing. What about you,
Yeah.
Mobley?
Kind of similar in some ways. I used to have a band, and then the way that I kind of became a solo artist was I had a tour booked, and we were a duo at that point, and my drummer couldn't make it, and so I had to decide whether to play the tour acoustic or kind of figure out a way to do the whole show, like the whole band show by myself. And I ended up like coming up with this one-man show where I play all the instruments and I loop stuff and trigger sequences, and that kind of was like the curve bent upward immediately after that, like I think for two reasons. One, like it's just not something you see very much. So I was getting lots of people coming up to me being like, and it was the same music, but lots of people coming up to me just like, I'd never seen a show like that before. That's so inspiring. And I think it helped people understand what was happening behind the scenes better too, because you see this one person and then you just like, well, then I assume all of this is you. But also just financially, like it, all of a sudden it was just me. And so like it just made the money make way more sense. And then likewise, like my wife is a very, very talented person, and we kind of made it the family business. So she would tour with me as my tour manager, and she would mix the shows. And so just I think the flexibility that gave us and the ability to adapt to a lot of different situations and show up and do our thing. I think the biggest thing is just being able to wear, like I said at the start of the conversation, being able to wear a lot of hats, and therefore like find a lot of different revenue streams, whether that's composing, whether that's like my own music, whether that's producer work, whether that's live shows, which are the biggest part of my income up until last year. I kind of had the same thing for me, like as you, Sierra, where like 2019, it was like, wow, this is crazy. Like things are finally feeling like they're popping off exactly how I wanted them to. Like I got everything lined up for 2020, got the runway, and then I was actually I played a show at Bowery Ballroom, sold out show. It was like a ton of fun. I flew to LA to play a show at the Troubadour, and then got the call like South by Southwest is canceled, your summer tour is canceled, your fall tour is canceled, like shows are over. And so yeah, it was the same thing where it was just like, whoa, what's happening? But similarly to you, like I also think, I don't like to talk about a silver lining to this, because like it's not right how many people have had to suffer and die through all this for nothing. Like if we're going to be real about it.
Yeah.
But just like setting that aside for a minute, I will say I have been grateful for the opportunity to like get off the hamster wheel for a minute and like experience my time as my own, and focus on the aspects of being an artist that I really love, like just delving deeper into the music I love, like making new music that I love and finding new creative inroads. That's a long rambling way of saying, in terms of the way that my career works as an independent artist, it's really just about having a tight knit group of people around me who I trust, who we help each other, and then yeah, just being able to do a lot of different things and make a little bit of money in a bunch of different places and put it all together.
It's really dope, man. I'm learning so much, and I'm loving the stories. It's actually kind of cool that they brought us together, because I definitely want to be able to keep in touch with you guys, because I'm always in
Sure,
LA, Sierra. So I'm gonna
sure.
pull up on
Let me
you.
know.
You feel
Please
me?
do.
And hopefully, I love Texas barbecue, so I
We
definitely
love
need
our
to I definitely need to
Yeah.
come to Texas soon, man. And one of my favorite bands, this band called Spoon, is actually from Austin, Texas, man. So
Oh, Jim, their drummer mixed the singles off my last record with me.
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I was I remember quick story. I was at Bonnaroo, and I was dating a girl. She was working for the Bonnaroo company, so I had like access to like all the stages and backstage areas. So Spoon was like the top of my list. Like I've been a Spoon fan since like I was in college, and I remember like I was like the only black guy in the crowd, and I kept jumping up and down. And Britt Daniel was like, "Yes, you, yes." He just like, "This guy right here is amazing," and that made my day, bro. Like that made
Yeah.
my day. The fact that Britt Daniel pointed me is like, "Yes, you are amazing." I told all my friends, they's like, "Who the fuck is Spoon?" I was like, man, like they're the greatest ever. You
They're
know what I'm
great.
saying? Like, so
When you come here, we can go work at Jim's studio.
man, I would love that. I would
Yeah.
definitely love that.
Yeah.
Yo, so how can the people find you guys? Like shout out your social handles, the music, everything, man. We want to make sure that people, walk away with not just the knowledge, but also the art too.
I'm Sierra Sean everywhere, spelled like that. So type that in everywhere. You can find me. I have stuff on the streamies right now. So you can stream that. You can download that, if you want and actually purchase it. I'm writing some new music now that hopefully now that things are opening back up, I'm looking forward to getting on the stage soon. But I'm just kind of in the lab right now, writing a lot of music that I think people are gonna like. I also write for other people. So if you are somebody who wants some co-writing or some songwriting, holler at me. And also my label, Over Everything Music. You can find that on Instagram and our website. We have a lot of artists putting out stuff and are about to put out stuff in the next few months.
Fire.
And
What
thank
about
you,
you?
Weeksville, for having us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What about you, Mobley?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff at mobleyWho.com, mobleyWho.com. I've got music videos on streaming, and for sale, like you said, if you want to actually purchase it and own it. And likewise, I write and produce for other people, so definitely open to that if people need that. And then I'll be going on tour with Louis Del Mar in September on the West
Nice.
Coast. So if you're out west, you can come see me on a stage in September. And yeah, just thank you again to Weeksville for having me, and to y'all for the great conversation, and love to stay connected after this.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. So name's Spree Wilson. SpreeWilson.com. You can find a majority of like music videos. Working on new. Well, actually, I'm not working on any music now. I'm actually directing my first film in 2 weeks. So like
Nice.
I've been like in production like overload for like the last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
I
man.
know.
So yeah, I have no idea where it's gonna land, but if people want to stream me music, it's on Spotify, all the streaming services, and just hit me up on Twitter, or Instagram, and let's just have a conversation, because I like meeting new people and talking to people. I love just getting to know people, because I think that's just the beauty of life, is meeting people that's like you in some ways and unlike you in some ways. So I think that's amazing. So, and shout out to Weeksville Heritage Center for having us celebrate Black
And
Music
thank you,
Month.
Bree, for being our moderator.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? I actually love doing this, because I'm a very like open conversationalist, and I'm just interested. I'm also fans of you guys, and I'm interested in hearing you guys' process and your music, and like it was a privilege to even talk to you guys today. So I'm honored
Likewise.
to be here.
But
So yeah, I think that's it. We love you guys, and we hope to see you guys soon in 2021 and 2022 and beyond. So
Yep.
hit us up.
I'll take care.
Peace.
you
right, welcome for a special edition of our podcast, Behind the Wheels. My name is DJ Artistic. I am a DJ based in Los Angeles, California, who's just a, international DJ. I love doing everything from parties to clubs and just discussing everything about black music. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Mr. EB. EB, what's good?
What's going on, everybody? This is EB. I am the self-professed musicologist based in Brooklyn, New York. I am a writer, blogger, content creator, and lover of all things black and soulful. So definitely black music as it pertains to the way it makes us feel, groove, and move.
That's what it's about. And right now we have a special episode for you. This episode is a collaboration with Weeksville Heritage Center. Make sure to check them out at weeksvillesociety.org. We're doing this for Black Music Month, so it's perfect timing for us to have our podcast about black music. So to get into it, just to introduce everything, we are about to be basically wide open again. The pandemic is not necessarily over, but we're acting like it is. People are tired of being inside the house, and that means that parties are going to be back. That means it's going to be concerts and everything else. And with that, one of the main things that we look forward to as lovers of music is just about the song of the summer and just the music that's going to get us through the summer, the soundtrack of the summer. And last year, because 2020 was basically canceled, it didn't really count. It was kind of hard to say if we even had anything like that. If so, I would say it was probably Savage, the Beyonce, and Meg Thee Stallion. I mean, TikTok was our club last year. That's all we had was TikTok and social media. But with stuff being back open, as a DJ, I'm definitely looking to see what song is going to make people move a lot. And looking historically, it's crazy that 25 years ago was 96, and I always think about that summer because it had so many anthems. We had My Boo from Ghost Town DJs. We had the 112 Only You. We had Nas and Lauryn Hill, If I Ruled the World. We had all those classics. So I'm sure we're not going to have anything that legendary, but maybe so. Who knows? What do you think about it so far?
I was kind of hoping that the song by Amorphous, DJ Khaled, and Fat Joe would be the song of the summer for a lot of people because it's light with the sample, and I mean it's called Sunshine, the light, and it's like we coming out of caves anyway, like everybody's in their house. So I was hoping that would be the song of the summer, but I don't think it's gonna be as hot everywhere as it is in New York. So I remember the last big song of the summer, and the song that I always associate with summer still is A. Marie's Why Don't We Fall in Love. Like when I hear that, it's like first day of summer. Like, all right, A. Marie's walking down the street with her shorts on. She on somebody block at the block party. Like I'm thinking that's what I want to feel, but I don't know where we're gonna get that from. I'm hoping that some R&B singer drops a nice banger. And it would be nice if we got one R&B and one hip hop, and it's not like, an R&B song when they throw a rapper on the bridge or something. I don't want that. I want a true
R&B song. Yeah,
I want an anthem. Yeah, I want an anthem.
I get it because looking back, the '90s just had so much summertime music. I mean, it's been 30 years since we had Summertime from Fresh Prince and Will Smith. So that dropped in May of '91. So the '90s had that summertime vibe. The last 10 years. Most songs of the summer have been more so hip hop, like you kind of discussed. I do remember 10 years ago it was I'm On One. That was Drake and Wayne. Yeah. And Drake has had a couple each summer. He's had 2016 he had everybody remembers those clubs going from One Dance to Controller back to Work from Rihanna. That little three-piece would be at every single club. And I remember Cardi B owned 2017 once we got to late July, it was nothing but Bodak Yellow. I remember 2014 was all about Bobby Shmurda. By the time it was late July, early August, it was Shmurda throwing your hat in the sky. So I do remember those years. Those stand out to me a little bit. I would say the front runners so far on the more R&B-ish tip, I would probably say Wizkid Essence. It's Afro beats, but that song is just a vibe, and it's one of those where everyone who's an Afrobeats fan has been complaining about hearing Joanna and If and Ye at the club every single party, especially on the East Coast. But I feel like Essence got to be that next one that's going to reach that level. And I would say for the club right now, it's looking like City Girls Twerk Letter is making some noise.
I mean, for the R&B ones, I was kind of hoping that Silk Sonic would have dropped another song by now.
We need it.
Yeah, just something a little more upbeat than Leave the Door Open. but you know, something that just feels like summer. And I think they probably have a better chance of doing it than a lot of other artists, but it's too hard to tell. Like, I don't know what their summer's gonna sound like.
What they're going for.
Yeah,
we've been talking about that the last few weeks. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, today they did actually drop a kind of a 30-second commercial for something. They had somebody else singing with them. I think D Miles was singing, and it was just a random jingle. But even that jingle was fire. I'm like, are y'all just teasing us? Are y'all setting us up to hit us with a 10-piece? You ain't gonna announce it. You're not gonna promote it. It's just gonna be we wake up Friday morning and it's out, or are we gonna be waiting for 5 years and never get anything? Like, it's hard to say. Like, I think they're gonna drop something for us, but I just hope
either they're gonna do like a Beyonce like surprise, or they're gonna do a Rihanna like we just ain't gonna never drop it. Like, y'all just gonna wait.
I can't tell, but I think because they've been performing a lot, they've been performing that song a lot. They have to be setting us up for something else. I don't think they're gonna leave us hanging at that level. So if they drop
not
it
this summer, come on,
they can't.
After everybody's been locked up in the house, like everybody's ready for anything. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that a lot of mediocre songs will actually pick up this summer because people are just tired of being in the house. So the first song you hear in the club, the first song you hear at the cookout is going to be your song. Yeah,
that's what might end up happening. So we're going to see about it. We're going to see what happens with that. So moving on to our segment called The Rewind. The Rewind segment is where we discuss artists from the past that we feel may be unsung, may be legendary. They may be, generational, regional, whatever it is, but we always like to give our flowers to the artists who are out there who have made major impact in the past, whether it was from songs, album, production, behind the scenes, whatever it is. So, EB, for this episode, who would you like to highlight for your rewind pick?
Oh man, one of my favorite artists ever, Brooklyn's own Stephanie Mills. Brooklyn's own Miss Stephanie Mills.
Represent.
Born right in Bed-Stuy. She was singing at Cornerstone Baptist Church. That's where she, tightened her skills. But by the age of 9, she was already in the Broadway musical Maggie Flynn. Wow. When she was 11, she won amateur night at the Apollo for 6 weeks straight. And And then she became an opening act for the Isley Brothers, which is kind of strange because, you can't imagine an 11-year-old opening for the Isley Brothers because that don't go together. But
I can't even picture it.
That was her path. She started with the Isleys, or opening for them, and she signed to Paramount. No hits were produced. Then she signed to Motown. But where most people really, really know her from is she was in The Wiz. She played Dorothy in the Broadway version of The Wiz. Later, she hooked up with James Ntume, who we've showed love here before, and Reggie Lucas, and that's when her career really got started. I mean, she's released 15 albums during her lifetime, and she's had so many hits from What You Gonna Do With My Lovin', Put Your Body In It, Never Knew Love Like This Before, I Feel Good All Over, The Power of Love, Putting a Rush on Me, Something in the Way You Make Me Feel. Like, Stephanie Mills just hits on hits on hits. And Stephanie Mills is one of the biggest supporters of Black music. She is always advocating for our artists to receive the proper love and respect that they should, to receive top pay. So I just felt it proper to, during this Black Music Month, kind of highlight Miss Stephanie Mills and maybe introduce a new generation to, the magic of her. I mean, like I said, she's been singing since she was like 4 years old. So this is a lifetime thing for her, and she ran the 80s. Like, Stephanie is definitely the truth.
Stephanie Mills is one of those legendary artists. Like you said, I feel like if you were there in that era, you definitely know all about her. If you're younger and you're a music head, you know about her, but maybe not in depth. If you're younger and you're not super connected to the 70s and 80s, is where you might say, oh, the girl from The Wiz, like they might know her from connecting her to something else. But like you said, she has some classics that you still hear at those day parties and those block parties. Like, What You Gonna Do With My Lovin', those songs, like when those come on, you start jamming. It just hits you. Like, I don't care if you never heard it before.
It's still a feeling.
Yeah.
It's that Black music feeling. And she's so visible on social media now, but I've actually had the pleasure of seeing her perform live many times, and it's crazy. It's almost like a Frankie Beverly and Maze experience where it feels like a family reunion and everybody is just like on one accord. But her voice is amazing still. It sounds
it's so
like,
clear.
Yeah, it's so clear and there's so much power there. So she is one of the ones who, you know, throughout the 80s, she did her thing throughout the disco, and then she brought in, she never really did New Jack Swing, but she definitely was doing like the
synthesized type of.
She started venturing into that lane, and which was cool for her because it gave her a couple hits too. But you know, she was one of those people who hit right before like New Jack Swing and hip hop
influence.
Yeah. It was one of those things. But she's always showed love. She always showing love to hip hop as well. So it's not just a love for R&B, but she's always showing love to hip hop artists.
Definitely. The thing about a lot of artists from her generation, we always talk about how a lot of the ones who came right before hip hop and New Jack Swing took over, it was hard to make that transition because the sound changed so much. I mean,
so much.
Everything about the image to it, the dancing with it. But at the same time, her and a lot of artists from her era, they still can live from it because it's where her and even how we mentioned Patrice in previous episodes and even the Denise Williams type, because for one, they were actual singers, like you said, because they came from that era where you had to actually sing to get on. And the fact that she's winning Apollo, she wasn't just somebody who was like an industry plant. It wasn't just, all right, she's cute, so let's just give her some little hits. Let's write her some hits. She was a true musician, so it shows. The fact that she's still relevant today is because she really was a student of that craft, and she actually honed it in everything, and it still shows to this day to me.
Yeah, I mean, 6 weeks at the Apollo, like, and this is this is back in the 70s, so this is when like it was brutal. So
I'm sure of it.
To win for 6 weeks straight, that means you at 11 years old.
They don't care how old you are. Like Lauryn Hill got booed. Lauren was 12 and got booed. They did not care. Yeah,
exactly. So they don't care. But to do it back then and to be so young, that really speaks to her talent because, you know, that audience would tear you apart. It was all love, but they would tear you apart.
It was brutal. Yeah, they probably boo you and see you in the hallway like, look, baby girl, you got to hit this note a little bit stronger. You got to go into it with a little bit more confidence. But it was a loving boo, but you know. But
it was a loving boo, but if you was bad, they had to get you out of there. But they didn't get Stephanie out of there. Yeah,
seriously. So salute to Stephanie Mills. So for my pick this week is going to be totally different, but I'm gonna tie it in a different way because this is all about, you know, representing Brooklyn today too. So I'm going with DJ Quick, and the way I'm tying this in initially is like this. So back in 2003, Jay-Z, who is known as basically the greatest rapper ever to most of us, at least one of the greatest, straight from Brooklyn, he had his supposedly final album called the Black Album that most of us knew he was not really going to retire. We knew he was coming back like Jordan wearing the 4-5 as he said, but I remember everybody saw those ads in the Source, and the ads were saying 14 songs, 14 producers, and it had the legends that we already expected. Timbaland, it had Pharrell, it had Dre, it even had Eminem, who, as a producer, no, he's not a legend, but, you know, we respect him for what he did. It had Ninth Wonder, who was fresh off of that Little Brother album, The Listening, so we're hyped to see that. And then it had a couple more. It had Just Blaze, obviously. It had Kanye, obviously. Then it had DJ Quick. And it's where I remember being at FAMU. I remember people who were from the East Coast were like, he got everybody on there. And then we were all like, he got Quick on there too. And they were like, Quick, the old rapper who had the Jerry curl back in the day, like him, like, why is he on there? And we were like, what you mean, why? And it showed, like, back then there was a huge disconnect between just the regional, you know, discussions because there were a lot of regional artists who might not have gotten as big in different places. But Quick is a very unique situation of being generational and regional, where he was definitely huge outside of LA in the early 90s, but it was right before the West Coast truly took off. So he came out in 91, he had Quick as the Name. Everybody knows Tonight. Most folks know Born and Raised in Compton, but Tonight he sampled Clear along with Betty Wright, so that's a classic that everybody knows, basically a hip-hop classic. And then he came back with Way Too Funky, which was not as good of an album, but it was still solid. He was still big with that. He had a song called Just Like Compton where he talked about touring all these different cities, but mainly the Midwest and the South. So he didn't really discuss the East Coast because at that time it was kind of regional, where if you were an LA artist who wasn't NWA, Ice-T, Ice Cube, of course, like who came from NWA, it was where you didn't get the same type of love. But he discussed Denver and San Antonio, and he was big in these cities that didn't really have a huge hip-hop scene. but it was where once Dre and Snoop came 92, 93, you even had Coolio, who was huge in 94, and you had these different West Coast artists who got big. 40 and Short came. Quick kind of fell by the wayside for a minute. He had a couple, industry incidents, and then he came back in 95, and it was huge in the West Coast, but wasn't as big everywhere else. He had Safe and Sound, and the album was definitely a classic. But the thing about him, he was a great, great producer, and even at that level, before he got to the late 90s, he was one of the best producers in the game. He was working a lot with Death Row, and a lot of folks know that he had a lot of work with Tupac. So he mixed most of Tupac's album, All Eyes on Me. He produced the song Hearts of Men on there. He worked on Above the Rim and all these type of albums. And then 97 comes. So what's interesting about West Coast rap is that 96 is when everybody sees that it fell off, because mainly when Tupac died, people saw that it fell off, but it's a lot of stories behind that. But 97 comes, and Quick produced what was probably the biggest West Coast kind of regional album called Street Gospel for Sugar Free. And the thing about it is that as much as people see, a lot of times if you're not from a certain region, if you're not from the South, you don't understand the impact of UGK. If you're not from Florida specifically, you don't get how big Sugar Daddy was. When it comes to Sugar Free and Quick, it's where they were huge here, but when you listen to it as a music fan, you actually understand what made it so big. Quick was not just producing with just generic G-Funk type beats. He wasn't just taking the George Clinton loop. He wasn't taking that Roger loop. He was actually a full-on musician. He was playing all these chords. He had a real instrumentation, the bass lines, the guitars. And at the same time, he had a big hit with Tony called Let's Get Down. He produced that, and a lot of folks know that song was big. And he actually inspired songs like Go Deep that Janet Jackson had. If you hear Go Deep, that's Jimmy Jam and Terry, but they use Quick style on there. And throughout the years, he was known for just for having big hits regionally, but he was actually producing for a lot of artists outside of just the West. So he had songs he did for Charlie Wilson and Gap Band. He had a song for Deborah Cox. He had a song for Whitney Houston he did with Raphael Sadiq. And he was known for making these great musical productions, and to me it felt like he was almost overqualified as a rap producer, which sounds crazy, but he didn't really have that hip-hop boom-bap sound. He didn't have the high-energy crunk sound when crunk got big, so he kind of got washed in there. But I think anybody who listens back to it as a music head, they appreciate it. So when I'm on Twitter, whenever I see certain debates, I purposely kind of trolled and had a debate asking people, who would you pick, Swiss Beats or DJ Quick? And 90% of the people said DJ Quick. And the 10% who said Swiss were like, oh, that's because we have West Coast followers. Next thing you know, all my Midwest folks, my down South folks, and a couple from Jersey, D.C., New York were like, no, I'm not from the West, but I rock with Quick way harder. Like Swiss had the club tracks, but when it comes to being the musician, Quick was like number one with that. So all that to say, looking at the Black Album, that's the reason that Jay-Z picked him. And it's crazy that most Jay-Z fans didn't even understand why he picked Quick to be on that album. And I will also say, as Quick's biggest fan, basically, I was not happy about that song that came out. I was not happy about Justify My Thug. When I heard the song, for one, I looked at the credits and I said, is that really Quick? Is that really like, maybe it's the wrong song. Maybe they labeled it wrong. Okay, it is Quick. Let me listen to it 3 more times. And I mean, I can't front. I didn't care for that song at all, but it didn't take away from his legacy because we know how Jay-Z is too. Later on, I read that Quick gave him 5 different beats, but Jay-Z picked the beat that worked best for him versus the best beat. And that's what Jay-Z is known for doing. So, I mean, that's what happened with that. But overall, I would say Quick is the type that he also worked on In the Club. In the Club was the biggest song to me of the whole 2000s, and Quick did the drums on that. He produced that Truth Hurts Addictive. That song was huge. A lot of folks think that Dre did it because I mean, Dre put her out. And that song didn't have a typical Quick feel. That had a straight, you would think almost Timbaland or even Just Blaze. They all had that Indian influence at that time. You had the React with Eric Sermon. You had the Indian Carpet Timberland type songs, but the biggest song from that era that had that Indian style came from Quick, and that was nothing close to what he was doing for Sugar Free and for Snoop. So I would say he's definitely one who is very unsung, and he's still making music to this day. He's still working with a lot of the new artists, from Terrence Martin to even Kendrick. If you listen to King Kunta, that beat is basically Quick. That came from Mossberg Get Naked. So even though Quick didn't directly produce it, that's directly from what Quick made. I would say it's an interpolation of what Quick did for Get Naked. So that's definitely my rewind for this week. So for you being from the South but living in New York, like, did you know about Quick growing up, or what was the whole? You just knew him by name, maybe?
We knew who he was. It wasn't a thing where we was like actively seeking out DJ Quick records. And also at the time, I think I didn't realize you said something that made me think about it. You said that, maybe he was a little overqualified to be producing, hip hop.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't realize how talented he was. I didn't realize that he was an actual musician as opposed to, just a superstar producer type, just put his name on something. Like, this man is really, like, he knows music. That's one of my favorite things about him. But we knew who he was, but we weren't listening to DJ Quick all of the time. I think it wasn't until that Tony, Let's Get Down dropped when I was like, okay, like, because it sounded like the West Coast to me. It sounded like something that I wasn't really used to. South Carolina, we wasn't listening to none of that. So it had that West Coast feel, that West Coast sound. And I was like, all right, let's pay attention to him. When the Black album came out, I was a little disappointed with the song as well. But that's Jay-Z. Like, I don't think it's on Quick. He gave him the beat, but if Jay-Z's not gonna pick the hottest beat, or he's not gonna pick anything that sounds amazing. He's gonna pick what he can work with and what he can rap over, and that's what he did.
Yeah, exactly. And looking back at it, it's like I halfway get, because I can't picture him on a super West Coast beat either. Like, we've heard him on Dre, and the thing with Dre's sound at that time was more evolved to sound a little bit darker, a little bit more East. So we heard him on, like, if you remember the song Change the Game was produced by Rick Rock from the Bay. So that song always sounded West Coast, but it was a little bit more of a little bit darker edge to it. Remember Change the Game on the one that he had with Beanie Siegel in the house. That
right.
So that song did feel West Coast, but even that one was it just fit Jay-Z more than, like, if you heard Sugar Free, While You BSing, if you heard, like, I'd Rather Give You My Chick, if you heard, like, what he did, Use a Gangsta on Rhythmalism, like, the songs on Rhythmalism, that's his best produced album, and I can't really picture Jay-Z on any of those. So it's like, I get why he did pick a beat that didn't sound like him, but he went to him, so it's still kind of like, why go for it if you didn't want his sound?
If you didn't want his sound. I mean, and maybe he had aspirations of actually, doing something with that sound, but then when he got the beats, he realized, I can't do this.
Working.
I'm not gonna say that he can't do it, but like you said, it's not working. Maybe he was like, this is not working, so let me go with something that's not as West Coast right now.
For sure.
It's not really my comfort zone, because Jay-Z's all about his comfort zone, and he works that well.
That's all it's about. So overall with that, definitely got to salute to Quick, and he's still out here doing his thing. So that's definitely my rewind pick for this week. And the flip side of that, we always have what's called the fast forward. So with the fast forward segment, we like to highlight the artists who are out there making waves, who are on the way up. Some of them have already received acclaim, whether it's from Grammys or nominations, or just, notoriety from whatever direction. And we have some artists that we mentioned who are completely unknown, but everything in between that. And for this episode, EB, who would you like to highlight for your fast forward?
I'm going to do a young lady out of Central New Jersey. Her name is Fouché. Her name is Brittany Fouché, but she goes by Fouché.
Okay.
We talk a lot about TikTok and how the influence of TikTok, and how, you can go viral on there one time and, you got a hit, or, they can revive old songs to be hits because of TikTok challenges.
It happens.
Like in the story, in Fouché's story, there was a rapper, Sleepy Hollow, who did a freestyle over her Deep End that ended up going viral. And the problem is, it was only credited to Sleepy Hollow. It was not credited to Fouché until after it went viral, and then people started hitting her up like, yo, is this you? Is this your voice? But what he did was basically sample her. And she's been blowing up ever since. Like, she's been doing her thing. She's like I said, out of Central New Jersey. Her mother was actually in a band, an all-girl band, before Fouché was born and before they moved to America. But she grew up listening to a lot of Bob Marley when she was younger, because, a lot of reggae in her household. And then as she got older, she discovered the Brandys and the Solanges. and Tony Braxton, Celine Dion are the people that she says are huge inspirations to her. But as an adult, which is that cross-generational thing, she discovered the legend that is Shaka Khan.
Okay.
And she says once she discovered Shaka Khan, it kind of opened her eyes to the different genres and different possibilities of music. Like she started experimenting with jazz because of Shaka Khan. They call her alt soul, and I'm still trying to figure out what alternative soul is exactly, but that's the title that they've given her music, and they put her in the same lane as people like Alex Isley, Victoria Monet, or even Van Jess that we've discussed on here before, or Ari Lennox. So she has this eclectic style. I personally think they call it alt soul because they need to label it some way to market.
It has to be a label somehow.
It's just like, let's throw everybody who is not doing the standard, radio song. Let's just throw them into the label of alt soul. But yeah, no. So Fouché out of New Jersey, she is one of those rising singers who has like a very unique voice. Her voice is very airy. But it has power behind it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's airy with power. And you can tell that she actually studies the music that she sings just by the arrangements that she plays with or her placements. She does not have an album out just yet, but there are plenty of singles out. She's always dropping songs. She's always doing live performances. And her live performances are where I fell in love with her because, like I said, even though her voice is airy, it's heavy. But when you hear her live, it almost like a spiritual experience, depending on what she's singing. Her Instagram is nothing but clips of her singing live. Her YouTube is nothing but just dope stuff. She's one of those people I think that, if given the proper amount of exposure and if given the right amount of time, that that she'll be a name that's around for a while. She deserves to be. She's been putting in like work, and this is all basically like TikTok. You went viral without even realizing it, just because someone sampled something that you did, something you've been working at, and now your streams are like in the millions
up there.
So
wow.
She is my fast forward because I think that that TikTok exposure really helped, and not only helped, but also exposed her to a lot of like the active music buying audience, like the Gen Z people. So I can see her being around for a while for that reason.
Makes sense. How is her name spelled?
Foushee.
Okay. I know our listeners are probably wondering how to type her name in because at first I was thinking, was it Fouche? I couldn't really tell. But
no, Foushee. Fouché.
Fouché. Okay, I gotta check her out. And where is she from? I know you said she moved to the States with her family. So where is she from originally?
They were from Jamaica.
Oh, from Jamaica. Okay, so you
Jamaican.
said the reggae influence and all that.
The reggae influence was like all she listened to growing up, and then when she got here to America, that's when you discover Celine Dion and Tony Braxton, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, let's see what they could do. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And Shaka Khan, you mentioned that. That's crazy because I think Shaka Khan is the type that I feel like any singer who uses her as an influence or says that she's an influence, I already think that I already respect them and I already expect them to be a dope singer. I've never heard somebody say I love Shaka Khan and then they end up singing, with no power, no strength, no type of like.
It's impossible.
Feeling.
It's impossible because Shaka is such a like student of music herself. So to study and listen to her music and the way she uses her voice is like an instrument. Like it's like a horn. So
it is literally
literally a horn. So to listen to that every day and then try to sing and say that's an influence, you have no choice but to sound good. Like I've like you said, I don't know anybody who said Shaka Khan and they come out sounding like trash. I've never heard it.
Seriously, same way for me. So salute to Fouché. So with that, my pick for this episode is gonna be Griselda. Griselda is basically that's what we call them as a collective. That's the label, Griselda Records. But it's 3 rappers who make up Griselda. That's Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher, and that's also Westside Gun. And with Griselda, so how do I even like hop in and explain it? So I didn't hear about them until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, so I was a little bit late. And even when I first heard about them, I didn't really know what to expect, but everybody told me it's kind of a new age whether it's a Wu-Tang type collective or whatever it is. They told me it was that underground-ish, but just super, super true, like New York type rap. So I started tuning into them. They're from Buffalo, so they're not from New York City, but they have a straight up authentic New York City sound to me. And with them, it's 3 of them, and they have perfect chemistry, but they all have their own style to me. I would say Westside Gunn is probably the one who has the most distinct style. He's kind of the one, every collective has the one rapper that is like clearly not as talented as far as lyrically or whatever, but they have the most personality. They have the most distinct voice and sound. So to me, that's what I would say Westside Gunn is. He has the high-pitched voice. He has these crazy, hilarious ad-libs. As soon as you hear him come in with the gunshot ad-libs, I can't even imitate on my own. It's like, all right, you already know what to expect. And he just has that flow that's like slightly offbeat, but it's all the way in pocket. So he's known for that. I would say with Benny and Conway, they're the ones who are the 2 more lyrical. Benny is the one who's known for having the features. He can hop on different tracks. He's slowly starting to branch out and do some of the commercial tracks. You hear him on a twerking type track, but he's the one who he fits on the track, but he's still saying some actual lyrics where you're like, you twerking, but you like, that's a bar right there. Like I'm twerking, getting some bars, but that's still not really his lane. It's just that he knows how to do those types of songs. But to me, he has the best project out of the 3 so far. I would say that his Burden of Proof project last year is probably my favorite of all the projects that they have. And I would say Conway, it's arguable to say who's better. I would personally say Benny is better, but I think, that Conway has a lot of fans who do rock with him as well. They both have those lyrical styles. They're the types that you love to just watch those 10-minute freestyles. They just give you bars the whole time. And it's a case of me wondering if their fan base is actually our generation or the younger or both or what it is, because everybody who I know, of course, is more 30 plus and they love them. But it's like, I wonder if the trap fans love them the same way, but they are getting features with those types of artists. And they are one of those groups that I think their appeal is because they remind us of what we grew up on when it came to those just straight lyricals, just spitters. But the songs a lot of times don't even have structure. It's just, they just rapping like, it's just 32 bars from one might hop on 48 bars and you don't know when it's starting and ending, but it's going. And they actually have, on the new DMX album, they have a song that Swiss produced, and Swiss, he used that production style that they're known for being on top of. He did it perfectly. Like he used a cold sample, one of those crazy, this ambient type of beats, and they all sound perfect on it. And then DMX hops on the end of it. And then I heard a song that Diddy played. It's not released yet, but Conway is on the Can't You See, the Biggie. And just the way he got off on there, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a hit. I couldn't tell who's singing on the hook. It sounded like Jeremiah, but it's not Jeremiah. I don't think it's Jeremiah at least, but it's one of those types of songs. You know how we love those R&B songs that have the hip-hop verse, and it's straight Diddy, hip-hop soul era type music. So I think this year they're going to finally break out to that level where they're going to be like commercial household names. Like they're everybody who loves hip-hop's favorite artists, but I think that I hope that they can kind of bring that New York style back. It's where New York right now, they do have their own sound, which is a derivative of, at this point, the UK. That UK, which I don't call drill. Everybody wants to call it drill. It's not drill to me. Drill is Chicago. That's different. To me, that's more so that UK grime, that I guess the content they call drill. But to me, that production style that New York uses on the song like Wetty and the Big Drip and all the Pop Smoke records and what's the song what's the other one that's big out there right now? They all have that similar style, and with Griselda their style is so much different. It just sounds like that early 2000s type style that we all grew up on. So I do think that they're gonna break out soon.
I think part of the reason a lot of the 30 plus crowd really messes with them like that is because they are bringing back the art of rapping, like of truly like of being lyricists. And I love that everyone has a distinct style, and no one is being carried by like the other members. Like everybody has something that makes them stand out. I think that will benefit them. But like you said, I am curious about their fan base. I want to know if the under 30s, I want to know if they are appreciative of it or if they think that it's too much. And when I say too much, it's like, it's dated, it's old. Like you're not, I think a lot of times our ears have become so used to like in hip hop, like songs having specific structures.
Yeah.
Whereas in the beginning, like hip hop didn't always have a structure. Like it was the art of the freestyle, it was the art of the rap just flowing. And I think a lot of fans may get lost. Or maybe it'll be an opportunity for education, and they can also go back and be like, okay, well, this is what, it's something different. It's not necessarily structured in the same way, but it's just as good, if not better, than a lot of what our ears are now trained to know is like, oh yeah, I like this. This is a hit. This, this is hip hop.
That's the way I see it, because like I was saying about Conway on the Can't You See, I think those songs will definitely like bring in the listeners, because it's where they can rap on a structured song. I've heard them do those structured 16s, but once you get to the album's gonna be a little bit different. But yeah, I also do wonder, like, so it could be even regional with that. I wonder if the New York young heads, they probably rock with it if they grew up listening to the hip hop with their parents and older cousins. But in the South, I'm not sure. Like for LA, I feel like it's probably, they have a couple fans, but it's just not as big with the young folks. Like I haven't heard anybody young really blasting it that way, but I'm sure that they do have fans in that generation. But
I mean, especially like you said in New York, I'm sure, because I mean, I guess that's where they come from. That's their influence. So it can't be just those three who appreciate, that style of rap. It can't be, like, especially here in New York. So I'm sure that they will have fans here, but like you said, go down south, it may be a different story.
Yeah, it might be a little bit different. And the song I was thinking about was called Whoopty. Whoopty was one of those songs with that new style of New York rap. So so I do wonder, because even when it comes to the HBCU like tour circuit this fall, like I wonder if they're gonna be on any of those tours, or if they're gonna be focused on more of the different types of festivals. I've seen them on some of these big festivals too, so they are getting shine with that.
Yeah, I feel like the festivals are probably going to be where they really pick up a lot of momentum and grow their fan base. They'll do it on the HBCU tours, and especially like this fall. Like I'm sure they're going to get it in there. But these festivals, I think, is where people will really pick up on them, and they'll like be appreciated more.
Yeah, for sure. That's the way I see it. So salute to Fouché once again, along with Griselda. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we get back from break, we're going to talk about artists and if their catalogs, if their albums determine their legacy. And we're going to have a couple examples that we do always discuss and debate. And me and EB, we might not have the solution. We might not have the rankings for y'all. We might not have a Mount Rushmore or anything for y'all. But we will just discuss, how we feel catalog size can impact an artist's legacy. And we also have a beat match coming up. We're going to make it fun for y'all this time too. So we might have y'all dancing in your seats, just using your imagination for it. So we'll be right back. But also remember that we have the playlist for you. We have our official Behind the Wheels Spotify playlist for you. It's in the liner notes of the episode. So we'll be back in a minute. While we're taking a quick break, please head over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review the show. This helps other people find the podcast. All right, we are back once again. This is Behind the Wheels, special collaboration episode with the Weeksville Heritage Center. I am DJ Artistic, and I have my host right here named EB. So EB, one thing that we've been talking about, that we've been seeing discussed for a long time, is about how much does an artist's catalog size impact their legacy when it comes to, we love doing those rankings. We love saying who's the best hip hop, artist alive, or from a certain decade, a certain generation, whatever it may be. And I know it's one example that you mentioned. You mentioned an example about Lauryn Hill versus Biggie, and what was that? And what's your take on it?
Like everybody considers Big to be one of the greatest. Like he is, I guess before he passed, people were like, that's the king of New York. He is, running everything. But when it comes to Lauryn Hill, it's like people will acknowledge that, yeah, she's good, but it's rare that you're like, oh yeah, no, Lauryn Hill, she is like one of the greatest ever, when their catalogs are basically the same size. And Lauren's actually is larger because she was with Fugees before going solo, and even then, it's hard to put them in the same category, because even though Lauryn is billed as a rapper or a hip hop artist, like, Miseducation was, it was hip hop on there, but I wouldn't call it a hip hop album. Another example would be, when we make our list of the greatest MCs or people who are slept on, Andre 3000 gets mentioned a lot, but technically he only has one solo album, a lot of features, and of course his work with Outkast. But I'm just trying to figure out what determines legendary status, and is it the quality or is it the quantity of the catalog?
It's a very complicated argument, and I guess you can somewhat compare it to the whole rings argument when it comes to the NBA, even NFL. But NBA, people always talk about, LeBron versus MJ versus Kobe, and then they'll mention the Barkley, or they'll mention how Dame Lillard is a current player who might not ever get a ring, but he's better than most players in the league. So it's similar, and on if you know basketball like that, vice versa, the Robert Horry, who has 7 rings, but he was never ever the star. So it kind of works in a similar way when it comes to rap, because I guess a Robert Horry type would be, say if it is a Prize type, who we know is not the best rapper in the group, but if he has a classic album because he's on the group, does it count for his legacy type deal? So that can kind of be that argument. But overall, it gets complicated, because one thing that I used to always discuss was about how, we talked about Biggie being the best, and of course, it was always a debate about Biggie or Tupac, especially early mid 2000s. And with that, Tupac died in 96, Biggie died in 97, and they died at what was seen as the height of their careers, but they could have gotten even bigger because their careers were ascending and they were at a current peak, but they had been ascending for years before that. So I think a lot of times with those artists, you do kind of give them like even if you don't say it verbally, it's like you kind of saying, because they got killed so early, you expect them to keep on going and to keep making more music and better music. And with Biggie, he only had those 2 albums, but he had a lot of features. He had a lot of remixes. He had from like the Can't You See. He had like the Flavor in Your Ear. He had the Dolly My Baby. He had the Mirror Love with Mary. He had to work with Junior Mafia. He had to work with Diddy. He had the 112 Only You remix. So when it comes to Biggie, I get why, even though he only had 2 albums, he had so many features. And with Tupac, he had more albums. I would say Biggie's 2 albums that he had before he died before the second one technically, but those 2 albums that he finished before he died, I would say they were better than essentially everything Pac had except for All Eyes on Me, as far as clearly better. And arguably, most people will say that those two were better than All Eyes on Me. But I would say, depending on who you ask, they'll put that album on par with those. But either way, Pac did have 5 albums, and he had a whole lot of singles. So Pac, his argument, I think, comes because he had so many different singles. He had, and major hit singles at that. He just didn't have songs that happened to get radio play. Like, he had songs that we still hear today, from the Dear Mama to the So Many Tears to the I Get Around. He had, like, California Love. You still hear that before every ESPN, Clippers, and Lakers, and Dodgers game. So he had that many major hits. So that's the argument with them. I feel like so when it comes to the recent artists, it gets complicated, because that's when it's a question of, for one, are 90s fans ever going to get over their whole 90s is the best of everything type of mindset? So when we start discussing these new artists, it's like, I remember 5 years ago, after Kendrick dropped To Pimp a Butterfly, it was questions like, okay, so he's dropped 3-4 albums. Is he at the level of Pac and Biggie? And people were saying he doesn't have enough work yet. But as we said, Biggie had 2 albums. Pac had, I think, Tupacalypse Now, Strictly. He had Me Against the World. He had four albums, basically. Then he had Don Illuminati, so he had 5 technically. But it's like by 2016, and then by 2017 with them, Kendrick had just as much work as Pac. But it's where some people will still say, all right, he's not at Pac's level. And then it's like, I can see both sides. I feel like with Kendrick, he doesn't have the single output. So when we compare him to Biggie and Pac, he doesn't have those singles that are that huge. He has All Right. He has a couple other songs that we do know, but his singles aren't hitting the same way. But at the same time, I would say his albums are better than Tupac's albums for sure. I would say comparing him to Biggie, I would say it's neck and neck. If you take Kendrick's best two albums against Life After Death and against Ready to Die, they're at least neck and neck, I would say. So it's tricky with that. So then we talk about artists like LL Cool J. When you look at LL Cool J, nobody really puts him at the very top. But it's funny because the first time I heard the word GOAT, meaning greatest of all time, was because of LL Cool J's album. And I remember when he dropped that, I remember my boy from school who just moved from Boston, he was like, do you think LL is the greatest rapper of all time? And I remember answering saying, I never thought about it, but if somebody said he was, at the time in 99, I wouldn't have been mad because he had a full decade. Not that many rappers had a hit in the late 80s, 86 and 99. And then if you extend that to 04, it's like barely anybody had hits for an 18-year period. We look at Jay-Z now. Jay-Z has done it, but LL, his argument, he had major hit singles all throughout that era. And of course, his albums aren't seen at the same level as the Biggies and Jay-Z's, and he doesn't really have Illmatic or Doggy Style or a Good Kid, Mad City or any of those, but he had so many strong singles, so it's where, how do you compare him? And then Busta Rhymes is similar. To me, Busta Rhymes has it where he's the only artist that you could say had the verse of the year 20 years apart. In 91, he had Scenario remixed with Tribe. And as I combine, I bring it back, come rewind. Then in 2001, he had that crazy verse on Look At Me Now with Chris Brown. So it's like, when you look at Busta's career, he has all these hit singles, but it's where nobody really looks at his albums at that level. To me, he had, ELE was great. I feel like when Disaster Strikes was a banger, but I'm not sure I would put those right next to the Blueprints and the Reasonable Doubts and those high-level types of albums. So that's the argument with him. And then before I pass back to you, with Andre has a complicated one too, because as you said, he only has one solo album, but that solo album doesn't even have but one song he's really rapping. That's the last song on there. But then you say he does have these Outkast albums where it's like, I didn't really think about it. As a kid, I knew that they were different rappers, but I didn't really think and really isolate them until I was probably, a teen, late teen. And when I look back, I love Big Boy, but 90% of the standout verses came from Andre. I feel like Big Boy was probably the reason that they had the sound the way it sounded. I feel like Big Boy deserves credit. I hate the fact that Big Boy doesn't get the same credit and people just kind of sleep on him. But at the same time, you think about songs like Aquemini. You think about songs like, he invented Sasha Thumper. You think about these songs that Andre, you think about Rosa Parks. You think about AT Aliens on Elevators. That verse, true, I got more fans than the average man, but not enough loot to ask me. Like, he had the standout bars, so even though those weren't his solo projects, he had that much input from 94 up to their album in 03. Idlewild had a couple okay songs, but then he had that singles or that features run when he's on everything from Walk It Out to Green Light to I Can't Wait to International Players Anthem. Yeah. And he has these crazy verses, so it's like, because he doesn't have a solo album that's at the level of these Illmatics, do we hold that against him? And that's when it gets complicated. So how do you
because then my question is, when you're talking about an artist, the body of their work, and you're saying whether or not you consider them to be legendary or not, or do you include their features in that? Because there was a period when Nicki Minaj was on everything, and when I say she was on everything, like her features, they didn't miss. Like she was the best part of so many people's songs, and then so many. But would you be like, well, yeah, nah, like she's one of the GOATs at this point because of her features alone, or are you looking at her albums too and like, well, the albums were not as strong, or do you look at, do you combine the two? Or do you look at just the albums, or do you look at the singles? Yeah. And then that's like, even going back, you can be like, nobody talks about Left Eye as a rapper, but it's like, do you include the TLC albums when she had like a verse here and there? Or are you like, well, she had a couple different features. They weren't like a lot, but I wouldn't put her on the level of like a Kim or a Foxy or anything.
Yeah, Queen. MC Light,
or even like
Latifah.
I wouldn't put wouldn't put her on that level. Or are you like, well, we can take, you know, her work with TLC and then maybe some mixtape stuff. I think there was like a mixtape released
maybe so
before or after I think it might have been like right after she died. I can't exactly remember, but like, do you include that? And are you like, well, you know, she was nice, like she was a nice rapper, or you like, she was just, you know, she was in TLC. Like you can't look at her group work, because if you do that, then you have to be like, well, with Andre, you can't look at Outkast's work. You know, you can't look at things like that. So it's I think it gets
it's a contradiction
because,
sometimes.
Yeah, because you're kind of picking and choosing when certain rules apply and when they don't.
It happens a lot, and it's like, so when you say with Nicki Minaj, one thing about Nicki is that, so even with Nicki, I feel that when it comes to, like, people have been talking about this whole Mount Rushmore thing the last few weeks, like the top 4 for this generation and that. And I would say a lot of with Nicki, I feel a lot of her hate is straight misogyny, because a lot of men just don't want to put a woman at that level. It's like they'll say she's dope or she's the best female rapper. But so with the Mount Rushmore, everybody was saying, okay, the obvious is Drake, Cole, Kendrick. Who was the 4th spot? A lot of folks were saying, all right, it could be Future, it could be Big Sean, it could be whoever else. And I'm like, it's easily Nicki. Nicki is, I'm not going to say above Cole, but I mean, as you said, it's like, I'll say Cole had better albums, but when it came to, if you give me 10 verses from the entire decade, I'm probably picking the 10 Nicki over J. Cole's, honestly. And Cole had some verses. Cole had verses and bars, for sure. But it's like, yeah, so it's like, I think, as you said, to me, it's kind of a combination. And comparing it to sports again, I feel like it is a combination where it's like, yeah, you have rings, but you have the all NBA, then you have all defense, then you have league leader in points. You might count a dunk contest. A dunk contest is kind of a freestyle. To me, I kind of freestyle as a dunk contest. So if you watch an old Jay-Z DMX freestyle, it's fun to watch, but you're not really counting it in the legacy for real, but it's just the added bonus. So that's how I count that. So it's like, when I compare the legacies a lot of times, like, overall, like, I feel there's no way to ever, for anybody to ever agree on who the best rapper is ever, but the greatest when it comes to just a collection of everything combined has to be Jay-Z to me, because of everything he has, from albums to singles to features to the duration of time, going from a strong 96 up to even today still doing stuff every couple months. So that's how I see it. After Jay-Z, it really gets fuzzy, and it's like, it's hard to say, because there's some artists who, like Kendrick, to me, is probably, after Jay-Z, he's probably top 3, top 4 when it comes to just making great albums. And then comparing him to Drake is the best singles maker in the last, maybe ever when it comes. Yeah. But at the same time, how do we count Drake when it comes to rap? Because a lot of Drake's singles are not him rapping. Like, he's melodically rapping, and he's singing on some. So it's hard to count Drake when you talk about rappers only. It's like, I love him on the Energy and 0 to 100, but then do we count Controller and One Dance? And even Hotline Bling is kind of in between. He's sing-songing with the rap cadence. It's, I mean, it's tricky.
If we're saying that we can count the Miseducation as part of Lawrence's catalog, and we can count the Love Below as part of Andre's, then it's like, well, they was on there singing too. So, like, do we include that, or do we, like,
take away,
like, disqualified? Like, does that disqualify everything? It's like, oh no, they was singing on air, so we can't really take that, because then you got to get rid of a lot, because that's the style now. That's what people are doing. Like, that is a lot of the rappers are out here with the melodic flows, where they're not really singing, but they're singing. So does that still count towards the quality of their hip hop catalog? Or do we, like, are those songs that we just can't look at? So it's like, no, they don't count. They're singing.
It gets complicated at that part, because then it's like, the way I see it too, and I've even had kind of like joke debates about, like, if there's a spectrum from like 0 to 100, or from whatever you want to say, and 0 is rap, meaning 0 is, I'm gonna say, Raekwon, Ghostface, who don't even sing as much as Grand Puba. Grand Puba is probably a 10 on this spectrum, because he would sing for a bar or two. And then, like, Snoop is a 10 to 20, because he has songs where he's singing, but it's still, versus on the 100, that's just Avant, Maxwell, who they just are singing. You get to an 80, 70, it's like Nate Dogg, Jeremiah, where they kind of have a rap cadence, but it's like it's still singing. Versus the 50 right in the middle to me is the Drake. It is the Lauryn Hill. It is Lil Baby is on a 40. It's like he's not ever going to be a singer, but everything he does has melody to it. So all that to say, it gets complicated when you count that in their legacy, because like Drake has songs where he does everything from the 0 to 100, just like his song says, where he has the songs where I know what to do with it. Like those songs, he's all the way singing and he's trying to be a crooner almost. But then he has the songs where he's all the way rapping. He has the songs where he's like what do you call God's Plan? What do you call Fake Love? Because it's like he's singing the hook and he's holding those words out during the hook, but the verse he's rapping but with melody. So overall, I just say it counts as hip hop. At this point, hip hop has evolved to where it does include melody, but overall, we can tell what it is rap and what's not. Like, I'm not really gonna count a Ty Dolla $ign album as a rap album. Like a Nate Dogg album, I wouldn't call that a rap album, but it's hard. I don't call it R&B or it's more hip hop than
it's Nate Dogg.
Yeah, it's Nate Dogg. So it's like, how do we count that? So all that to say, when it comes to Miseducation, I've been seeing debates of like what's the best hip hop album in the 90s, what's the best R&B album, and it's where some folks include her at the top of both or don't include her on either. They'll say she's rapping too much or she's a rapper. Mm-hmm. She's a rapper, so do we call it a pure R&B album? Because Maxwell with a pure R&B album. So how do we compare that to an album that has that thing doo-wop on it? But on the flip side, it's like it's way more singing than rap. So do we call it a great
but
rap?
Then the songs where she is rapping.
Yeah. She's rapping, and she's spitting. Lost Ones, she's spitting. And then when she's singing, she's really singing. She's not just being melodic with the rap. Like X Factor is singing. So it's
right. So which is different than a rapper who is still rapping or who doesn't have the singing ability, I'll say. So they kind of play around with it. Hers is more like, I can rap, but I'm going to switch it up, and I can also like really sing. Even though I got booed at the Apollo, I can really, 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 really sing. So she's always at the top of my mind when I think about when people are like, oh no, the best hip hop albums of all time. And every time I see them put Miseducation in that slot, I'm always like, I don't really count that as a hip hop album, but because most of it is singing. I mean, it's singing in skits with kids. Like, I mean, it's it's not like a 50-50 thing where on side A she's rapping and then side B she's singing. No, it's kind of just like what she is. And then by the time we got the second album, which technically it's a live unplugged album. Unplugged. So like, do you count that as part of her?
That's the question too. Does that count to her catalog?
Right. Does it? Yeah. Because I mean, people count like Mariah's live unplugged as part of hers.
Did she have original music on hers, or did she was singing the song she already had?
She was singing
right?
the song she already had. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lauryn had more original.
When you have original music versus. Okay.
It makes a difference. I would say it makes a difference because it was actually original music, but it's kind of hard to consume like that much new music as a live album too. It's kind of complicated because like, of course we had Erykah Badu who did Tyrone. That was live, but it still was mixed so good it felt like it was, it was the best to me live.
And it was one song versus doing a whole album live of stuff that people have never heard and expecting them to love it. And some people did love it. I wasn't one of those people, but some people loved it.
It's true. Yeah, and so it's tough. So I think that overall, when it comes to judging artists by the catalog, I would say it's just a combination of all those things. I wouldn't say it's just solely about albums. That's my whole thing, is that it's not just about albums, because then you have mixtapes too. And like with mixtapes, how do we count that? Because even with Drake, personally, my favorite project from him by far is still So Far Gone. And a lot of folks don't count that when they say what's the best album of the 2009s. And Lil Wayne, we didn't talk about Lil Wayne. With Lil Wayne, I feel like he's the type who has a lot of bases covered too. He has a lot of features.
He has albums, features.
Yes, great albums. Yeah. Then he had group work. He had the group work, and the thing is, he wasn't really as good when he was a hot boy. He was a kid. Of course, he wasn't No Ceilings Wayne, but he had the group work with them. He had the features with Juvenile. Mm-hmm. Then he had the No Ceilings mixtapes. He had the Drought. He had the Squad. So to me, when it comes to overall body of work, like I would say after Jay, Wayne is right there in that top 5 too.
Definitely right there.
Yeah, so it's where At the same time, a lot of folks, Wayne is controversial, especially being from the South, but having an even more, I'm not going to say he has a more Southern style than Andre. I'm not going to say that, but
it's
where
different styles of the South. Like it's
way
Atlanta
different styles.
versus
Yeah.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Which,
Yeah.
it's still all the South, but that's like, I'm
Yeah.
going to put it in terms of where I'm at. Like, that's like Brooklyn and the Bronx. Like, it's
that's
all
true.
New York, but they're very different styles. It's like going to Harlem for brunch and then going to Queens, and it's like, it's a little different, but
It is.
it's all still the South. Wayne is just as Southern as Andre. Andre is just as Southern as Wayne. It's just different styles.
Totally different styles. Yeah. And with that, I think overall, I would say Andre gets more respect by most hip hop heads because, I mean, the thing with Wayne is that he's somewhat polarizing because he had a lot of comical and even like rare like Mr. Clean with hair. And he had the way he rapped on that They Know remix with Shawty Lo. I mean, he I'm not gonna say he obviously didn't bring auto-tune in. We give T-Pain the credit for that, but
Right.
To me, the reason that all the rappers are using auto-tune the last decade is more so because of Wayne and T-Pain. They use it more like Wayne did on that one verse, where even the How to Love type songs, like more rappers came from that Lil Wayne tree than anybody else. So it's like it's where he's polarizing, and some Wayne is the type that like with Jay-Z, you're not gonna see too many people who have a top 10 without Jay-Z. With Wayne, you're gonna hear people or see people who have him at number 1, 2, 3. And you're going to see folks who don't have him in the top 100.
At all,
so it's very polarizing with Wayne. But overall, if you judging him by his catalog and everything else that I count, those mixtapes, the freestyles, the Off the Dome freestyles, the Rap City, whatever it is, Tim Westwood, whatever he's done, it's like, I say Wayne is up there. Yeah, so, overall, that's the way I see it. I think it's a complicated argument that we're always going to have when it comes to discussing rap. R&B is a whole different thing because then we have groups and artists with that. We can discuss that a different day. That's a whole different level.
That's a whole different discussion right there. Yeah,
musicians versus producers. Yeah, it goes somewhere else. But so overall, I would say you just have to take into account everything that an artist has done because they've done more than just make those albums. So
I'm definitely on team quality. Versus quantity, but you still have to count, their complete body of work, not just what you see as fit for. Like, oh yeah, we can count this as one of the hip hop. No, it's like you got to count it all.
You have to. Yeah, you have to. It's all about that quality for sure too. So that's the way I see it. So moving on to our finale, segment of the show, which is one of our favorites. It's called the Beat Match. In our Beat Match segment, we basically take two. It could be artists, it could be albums, it could be eras, anything like that, and we compare the two of those. And we're gonna do something different this time. We have, this is a special episode. It's about to be summertime. It's about to be, parties, and it's Black Music Month. So we're gonna do something we haven't done before. We're gonna have a song versus song battle. Just two songs. We're gonna compare, and we're gonna let our producers, Melissa and the lady, judge and say which one they feel is the greater song based on the criteria that we're gonna provide. So with that, each of us have 3 minutes to discuss our case on each of these songs, and then we have 2 rebuttals, and then we give it to our producer. So, EB, I'm gonna ask you, in the last, I will say since 1990, what would you say is the greatest hip hop and/or R&B, just black music party song of the last? That would be 31 years at this point.
For me, I guess it's definitely Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison. That is the ultimate party song, house party song, club song, whatever. You hear that and you get up.
Yeah, easy. I mean, as a DJ, I'm like, that's one of the ones that we could play anywhere. I would say that's probably number 2 or 3 to me. Number 1 for me, I gotta take it back to the 99 and the 2000. I gotta say it's that Juvenile. So it's one of those. They're totally different songs. The funny part is that they represent polar opposite ends of the 90s. It's 1990 versus 98, 99. But with that, I'll let you start off and give your debate on why you think that's just the ultimate party song of the 90s and up.
I mean, we've talked on here before about how we view music through the lens of nostalgia, and our connection to it is based on experiences that we've had. Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison is one of the greatest, if not the absolute greatest, party song. And I mean, no matter where you are when the song plays, you might do a little two-step if you in public and you're not really at a party. If you at a party though, you're gonna get down. And I think one of the most beautiful things about the song is the lyrics are absolutely like, it's not about a poison apple by any means. It's about a young woman who is passing around STDs. So they were able to push it off as this is educational. This is helping the community, especially during a time when, HIV is rising in the community and, we want our young people to be safe. But it's that you never trust a big butt and a smile that everybody loves. Like, if you've ever been at a party and that part comes on and you see the girls, they will look back at it and smile and then wink. And that's how you're like, okay, they feeling themselves now. They really feeling themselves. I think that coming from a huge group like New Edition, where, we were used to Candy Girl and Mr. Telephone Man, and then Can You Stay in the Rain, I think it gave us a completely different view of at least those three members. Like, we weren't looking for, nobody was going to a party like, put that New Edition on. Like, that wasn't what it was. But Belle Biv DeVoe was able to break out from this huge group that was known really for teenage teeny bopper music or slow jams, and they were able to give us this huge party hit. It was one of those songs where even now when it comes on, you could be 30 or you could be 40, you could be 50. You're going to dance. You're going to, if you're one of the older people, you're definitely going to remember where you were when the song came out, especially if you were in like high school, college around that time. Then you're like, okay, I was riding in my 1992 Accord, and I remember, it was like it's one of those songs that takes you back to the moment when you first heard it, how you felt then. Even though you didn't realize what it was about, you might not have known that the lyrics were less than perfect, but you remember partying to it. You remember the jam. You remember that coming on, and then like Chubb Rock's Treat You Right come on, and then maybe like Rob Bass, It Takes Two. It's like, these are the party songs that you remember. So that's why it's my number one from 1990.
I get it. I mean, talking to my older cousins, they told me that girls really had poison shirts. They would have shorts with poison on the back of them. So it was a huge movement. So that's why I say it's definitely 2 or 3. So I mean, it's a bit generational, of course. I mean, it is generational, but I'm going with Juvenile for a couple reasons. So the thing about Juvenile is that I feel like that song was transformational. That song, like with Poison, it was the peak of New Jack Swing. It was like it made that impact. That's what it was. Juvenile, when they dropped Back That Ass Up, it caused a whole shift in what booty shaking music was. So if you think about 90s, booty shake was all bass music. That was Atlanta bass. That was really Miami bass. Miami bass that Atlanta was influenced by, and it was where everything that was known nationally was, all those, the Hoochie Mama, the Luke, the Doo-Doo Browns, I Wanna Rock type songs. New Orleans Bounce hadn't broken through yet. New Orleans Bounce had been around for a while. Juvenile had Bounce with the Juvenile back probably in the early mid-90s. And those were just regional Louisiana songs. 97 had Jubilee, Get It Ready, So they had that sound in New Orleans, but there was no internet, there was no TikTok. So these songs stayed regional. When Back That Ass Up came, it basically broke through and created a whole new subgenre that followed that you heard so many songs that sounded like that afterwards. So once you had that was the first breakthrough, because, of course, How was the first single. Before that, before Cash Money took over, whatever, it was No Limit. No Limit had, the Thinking About Yous, the Hootie Hoo. They had the Make Them Say, all those type songs. Once you had Back That Ass Up, it changed everything, because bass was basically dead by this point. The last couple bass songs you had was like Shorty Swing My Way was that 98, I guess, 98 or so. So you had those, and those were still kind of more melodic versus like the, Lathan Freaker was 97. By 98, you didn't really have booty shaking music. DMX came with the hip hop. Bad Boy had the jiggy type music. When you had, after this Juvenile, then you get the immediate follow-up, the Hot Boys, I Need a Hot Girl. Then No Limit starts to take that style. They have Chopper style. They have Rock the Boat. Then you have Yin Yang Twins. They came from Atlanta, and they took that whole style. They had the whistle while you twerk and say ay, and then it's the get low, and then it's the all these songs that came from that. And it made New Orleans bounce a nationwide thing that everybody else was like, what have we been missing out on? And it slowed down the whole tempo, because before the whole bass music was all 130, 145 BPM. They took it at 96 BPM, which is technically a slow BPM. That's the same BPM as Selfish from Slum Village, but they put that twerk and bounce to it, and it was a whole different level. And with that song was so transformational, just the way it comes in. I knew it had to be a sample. I'm like, there's no way that a rap producer created something so symphonic that's so catchy. Like they had to sample some Bach or some Beethoven or something. But no, Manny Fresh was so creative that he actually took that and actually like he created that whole melody himself. That song is not really any samples aside from the little small horn hits in it. So they took that and the structure of the song, the way it builds up, the way that Wayne finishes after you back it up, then stop. And I'm gonna stop right now and hand it back to you. But I feel like that it's nothing touching that. I feel like.
Yeah, no, it like I said, Back That Ass Up is a great song. I don't think it truly captures an entire period in the way that Poison does. Like when you hear Poison, like you think about New Jack Swing, like you think about the height of that whole theme. You think sonically, even visually, you know, the aesthetics of it all with the overalls and the cross colors and the high top fades, and you think about that. Back That Ass Up, yeah. You think about the booty shorts and the coochie cutters, they call them, and you think about the girls in New Orleans with the hair, the tall hair and everything. But you don't think like, oh yeah, no, this is specifically the sound of, I mean, it may be the sound of the city, it may be the sound of New Orleans at the time, but you're not like, oh, this is the sound of a certain subgenre. Like it doesn't really capture that essence. I think also when talking about just like the lyrical contents of the songs, when Ricky Bell comes in with "It's Driving Me Out of My Mind," like that's the part, if you being a DJ, you know, you could turn the music all the way down and the crowd will sing it for you. Like the crowd will erupt in song. And it's one of those like family reunion experiences where everybody, you might not like the girl two doors or two people down from you dancing, but y'all both singing at the same time, you know, at the top of your lungs, trying to sound like Ricky Bell. It's one of those songs that even now I would not look at someone sideways for riding down the street and hearing Poison blasting, because it's like, oh, I understand. Like it's that type of day or that type of night, but it's not, even though it is a song that came out in 1990, I wouldn't say it sounds dated. I think it definitely just brings back the memory of the time.
I mean, I get that. So I think I see it a polar opposite way, as far as it does represent that era. When you hear it, you feel like you're in 1990. You feel like you have on the colorful outfit. On the flip side, with Back That Ass Up, that song came in 98, 99, but it was such a transformational song that you still hear songs today that sound just like it. So you still hear like City Girls Twerk. You hear Meg, Ride or Die. Like it basically busted that New Orleans bounce genre wide open, to the point that you still hear so many songs that sound just like it, and you still play it. When you play it, it's like I might have a set where I'm playing all new music, all new twerk songs. It might be even stuff from 10 years ago. Hey Ladies from Travis Porter. It might be whatever City Girls have. It might be Ken the Man, whatever. All these new twerk songs. And I'm going to drop Back to that stuff right next to those and still go back to new stuff, because it's like it doesn't capture that era, but it captures that essence of the twerk, of this party music. I feel like when it came, like you hear it sampled so much too. You hear people take those bits and pieces. People still rap like Juvenile. It's like you hear so many imitation songs that try to be Back That Ass Up. Like even when No Limit, they came out before Cash Money, and then after that, they had to go back and rework their whole sound. They said, we're the new No Limit, and all the songs sounded just like Back That Ass Up when they came back. They had songs that Master P was doing. He never made bounce, and he was from New Orleans. He never made a single bounce song until that song came. And he was like the hottest thing in the game for a quick second, 97, 98, especially from the South. But he had to rework his whole game based on really that song, because how it came and how it was big, But when Back That Ass Up came, they had to change up everything. And it's where, and just the way that the structure of the song is, it's like the way that it builds up, it's like, you have about 15 seconds to get to the floor. As soon as you hear, doom, doom, it's like everybody's running to it. And you want to be able to be in twerk formation right when he says, girl, you're working with some. As soon as he says that in the beat drop, it's like you're already in that little squat formation and all that. And then you wait for the whole song. It's one of those songs that Poison, you can just play one verse and you hype. You good off it. Back That Ass Up. You have to get to I Know You Can't Stand It. Then you have to get to that Lil Wayne. After you back it up, you have to get to that whole part. So I feel like the structure of the song, as long as it is, you have to play the whole song. Oh, she said it's time, it's time.
I mean, you make great points, because listen, the 99 and the 2000 is still they are still goals for a lot of people. A lot of people still trying to, that song they reference when they talk about it. But that song still, to me, does not, it doesn't live up to what Poison is. Like you talked about, the way that song has inspired the sound. Not necessarily a certain subgenre, but definitely that sound and that era. I mean, Bruno Mars, did a whole New Jack Swing album. Like, Finesse is basically, it's basically Belle Biv DeVoe. I mean, it's taken from the same book, and having that sound evolve a little bit, and you're still doing it now, 31 years later, as opposed to the Juvenile song. Like, it's a great song, but in that moment, like, it won't translate the same way.
I mean, I feel like the thing about Bruno and everything about New Jack Swing, to me, crazy enough, is that Poison is the biggest party song from that era, but it's not as melodic as most of the New Jack Swing. I feel like Bruno and them had a little bit more influence from Guy, and even from, like, Remember the Time, I would say, personally. But beside that, I would just say Back That Ass Up. One thing that is funny about it is that the clean version gave us the lines that we all say, because the dirty version doesn't even have that. The clean one is the one that he came in and said Cash Money Records taking over, because initially it dropped in 98, but he released it as a single 99. But either way, it's like the fact that you have epic lines from the clean version, and you rocking with either one, whether it's clean or dirty. And even though there's a twerk song that's saying what it's saying, I've seen grandmas do it with the baby in the arm, like Too Short said. I feel like whenever you hear that come on, it's like, it don't matter what generation it is, and it crosses cultures. They both do, but I'll say Back That Ass Up does cross cultures. I've played it at corporate events, and I've seen Susan from HR and get lit to it. So I feel like I would say I gotta go with that Juvenile though. So that's
Susan from HR though.
Susan.
Wow.
Yep. Susan, and Brad from down the hall.
Yeah.
He got
from
hired
marketing.
to it. Yeah, Bob from marketing. They didn't know what beat they clapped on the wrong beat. They clapped on the 1 and the 3.
That's to be expected. They don't have it, but
but there's so many claps. There's so many claps on that song. You can clap anywhere on that song. It's gonna work. So that's the way. My fault. All right. So at this point, I will hand this over to our producers, Melissa and the lady. I will let them. We all, if you aren't aware, the lady has the concert experience that ties to all of our debates.
Everything that we've ever talked about on this show, she's been to. Yeah. Like, I remember one time we talked about Dorothy Dandridge, and she was like, I remember seeing Dorothy Dandridge live. So she is really our black music expert, because she is everywhere all of the time.
You know what? The disrespect. Talking about transcending. That's what.
Right. Yeah. Listen, and she looked good too, y'all. She looked good.
She's still doing it. She has not aged one bit.
Not at all.
Look like she's in her 30s. Woman is 105 years old.
She is 135 years old minus 100. Like, she is there.
Just rude. Melissa, you want to go? I was waiting on your concert experience. You don't have anything to share?
I got one.
Okay. I don't know why you're trying to skip over your segment.
Right. Come on now.
Let me see. So I went to the Cash Money Rough Riders tour, and yes, that was a moment. I have seen Belle Biv DeVoe a couple times though, and I've seen New Edition separately, because they always separate it. But it's been some great moments, but it didn't really dictate who I'm going with this time. I am going with Juvenile though. For me, it was interesting because some of EB's arguments, I felt that way about the other song, and I'm like, I don't feel that way. When I think of a moment, it's automatically 9/9/2000. I'm thinking of white tees. I'm thinking about the shorts, the baggy jeans. I'm like, you can always throw that on. And it's a little generational, I know, but in general, I still respect both songs as like automatic party starters or like getting people on the dance floor. But for me, you can't really beat that one. Like every type of event, from a wedding to a corporate event, anything, throw on Juvenile and the party's over. And then I keep thinking of that video when Prince Harry was running away in war.
Why was he at war anyway? Why was he even at war?
Like,
you a prince.
People are so creative, you know.
They are.
Now that's a memory. I'm mad because, you know, he's not black and it's Black Music Month. But that's a memory
That's
to
a
that
memory.
song. So
Yeah.
it's still the deal for me.
All right, we got one for back that ass up so far.
What's the criteria again for this? What's the topic?
What's the greatest party record, black music, rap, or R&B, or anything else since 1990? And that's the top two picks that we both selected.
Had.
So if you think something else is better, I want to hear that afterwards. But
no, I don't.
If not,
okay. I mean, I think both these songs are spectacular. They both, you know, put a little patter in your heart when it comes on, but only one of them really just gives me like the adrenaline to actually party and run to the dance floor.
It's them damn strings, man.
And
now
then,
I picture it.
Right. The strings coming on. You know, as when they come on, you feel it. Like you feel it. It's like a call. It's like
an ancestral black.
Yeah, it's
is.
like I was thinking of Lion King, you know, at the beginning when they're holding Simba up. That's like like you feel that.
Everybody gathers around.
Everybody gathers around. An arch is put in everyone's back.
the arch in thy back.
And then as soon as that beat drop,
then you ready.
You ready? It's back that thing up. Like I don't think there's another song that just does that for everyone. Where as soon as it comes on, everybody kind of just stops and looks around to see where everybody meeting in the middle.
Who's around you?
Mm-hmm. Who's around you? And then you gotta make sure that you and your homegirl looking at you and your homegirl looking at each other in the face, so you know who's behind you.
Gotta make sure that little shake.
You know,
shaking.
You make that.
He look normal. He cool.
Right.
Thumbs up.
Oh wow, y'all just taught me something. I wasn't aware that.
Yes. We look at each other in the eyes. You don't even have to do the thumbs up. We just
That's
see it in the eyes, and it's like,
oh wow.
It's like go over there, move.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
They do it. I've seen it in action. So yeah. I'm like, I got the approval. All right, I guess I look cool enough. My haircut worked tonight. All right. I see it. So, hey, I mean, that's what it is. I feel like Poison is definitely, and like we said, they represent two eras of the 90s, but it's still crazy that the two biggest songs, I would say, since 1990 are still from the 90s. Like, I think the other candidates up there, for the 2000s, I'm saying Blow the Whistle is up there for the top three for that decade. I think Yeah was the biggest at the time, along with In the Club, but those two, you don't really want to hear them as much now. The last 10 years, I would say, 10, 11 years, I would say No Hands for the 2010 and up. No Hands is probably the best from the 2010 up era. That's what I would say. But yeah, I think that Juvie just has to take it, I think, so.
Well, congratulations on your win, sir. I love the song, but I just, it ain't my number one.
I feel it. What's going to happen is that whenever we see you at a party, I'm going to play both of them for you, and we're going to see what happens each time. We're going to see.
Gauge my reaction. Okay.
Yeah, I am. We're going to see it. So, might depend on how much Hennessy you had. If you drink Hennessy,
if we playing Juvenile, I'm drinking Hennessy. Like,
there it is then. There it is. Well, we appreciate you all for tuning in. Once again, this was a special edition of Behind the Wheels, brought to you by myself, DJ Artistic, my co-host, EB, in collaboration with the Weeksville Heritage Center. You all make sure to check them out at weeksvillesociety.org. Thank you all for having us. Of course, it's Black Music Month, so you all salute to all the Black musicians out there, past, present, and future. That's all this podcast is about, is uplifting all the musicians out there and trying to make strides as much as we can with that. So thank you all for being tuned in. We have a lot more in store for you. Follow me on social media at DJRTISTIC. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Catch me on Twitch, twitch.tv/RTISTIC310. EB, where can they find you at?
You can find me at EB for Prez. That's EB, the number 4, and then Prez is spelled PREZ as in zebra. And that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. I'm EB for Prez.
That's what it is. We also have, in our liner notes, we do have the Spotify playlist for y'all, which is going to have a little bit of everything we've mentioned today. That's Quick Stephanie Mills, that's Fouché, that's Griselda, that's Juvenile, that's some BBD, all that for you. So make sure you check that that Spotify playlist, and thank you all for being tuned in. Until the next time, out. Behind the Wheels is produced by Melissa D. Montz and the Lady Sec, and the music is provided by Epidemic Sound.